will you please take the roll call?
Trustee Bradal.
Here.
Trustee Brocchini.
Here.
Trustee Doggett.
Here.
Trustee Levin.
Here.
Trustee Villalobos.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The district digitally records the audio and video portion of the meetings. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items, please submit your first and last name and agenda item you wish to speak on in the Q&A area of the webinar. Please do not submit comments or questions in the Q&A area. You will be called to address the board. Your microphone will be unmuted and you may speak up to 3 minutes. After you have spoken, your microphone will be muted. Item 6, report out on closed session topics. The board met in closed session regarding conference with labor negotiator agency negotiator, in particular CSEA, LSEA, and LSMA. No action was taken. We discussed a public employee discipline. No action was taken. And we discussed a public employee performance evaluation for the superintendent, and no action was taken. Item 7, approval of the minutes of October 28th, 2020. Are there any questions regarding the minutes of October 28th, 2020? And I'm going to call on each trustee. Trustee Bradal.
No questions.
Trustee Brocchini.
No questions.
Trustee Villalobos.
No questions.
And Trustee Doggett.
No questions.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 28th, 2020?
A motion to approve the minutes from August, or wait, what date was it again?
October 28th.
2020.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, that goes to Trustee Doggett, I believe. Ms. Alves, will you please take the roll call or the vote?
Trustee Bradal.
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini.
Yes.
Trustee Doggett.
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Trustee Villalobos.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Approval of the consent agenda and consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be approved with one motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from the section and placed in the regular order of business following approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the approval of the agenda and/or consent agenda?
No questions.
Thank you.
No questions. No questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve the?
I have a question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
I was just trying to pull it up, but this is about the contractor costs versus regular employees. And we have new information, so I'm just wondering if that's on the reporting as well, or is it just what was sent out on Friday?
I'm not sure what the question is. Superintendent Olson, you got to unmute.
There we go. I got it. It is, we have the answers to the questions that were asked, but the slides are the same. Right. And then one question is, did I miss, we're still going to do the recognition, right? Not yet? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so let me get back on track here. And I also did want to check if there were any public who had any comments on this, and I don't see anybody who has a comment on the agenda. So are we ready? Are there any other questions concerning the agenda, consent agenda, or are we ready to vote on it, or at least get a motion on it, and then we can decide to vote? So any more questions? No? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll
Trustee,
second.
thanks, Trustee Villalobos. Ms. Alves, can you please take the vote?
Trustee Bradall,
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini,
Yes.
Trustee Doggett,
Yes.
Trustee Levin,
Yes.
Trustee Villalobos.
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear
Yes,
you.
thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 9, communications. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda items or non-agenda items, please submit your first and last name and agenda item you wish to speak on in the Q&A area of the webinar. Please do not submit comments or questions in the Q&A area. You will be called to address the board. Your microphone will be unmuted and you may speak up to 3 minutes. After you have spoken, your microphone will be muted. And so it looks like we already have Megan Ellsburn up for LSEA.
Good evening. We'd like to start our comment this evening with a moment of silence for our mentor, our leader, and our cherished friend, Patty McNally. We are heartbroken. We are devastated. As we continue on with each new day, we think of more ways we can honor her legacy. We look forward to working with the district into shaping that legacy she so greatly deserves. We will honor her in the most deserving way possible. We are thankful for the mark she has placed on all our hearts. We commit to carrying her humor, strength, and kindness with us in the days, months, and decades ahead. If I heard Patty say once, I heard it a million times. It's what's best for the kids. Let's always remember that. Let us make sure that what we are doing and what you ask us to do is what is truly best for the kids. Our union is strong, and we had that strength because of Patty. We will continue moving forward with her spirit and strength in our classrooms, at the table, and in our hearts. We love you, and we miss you, Patty McNally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Jerry Newland for CSEA.
Yes, Patty was truly a very, very special person, and she impacted so many students, her peer teachers, the classified employees. You never heard a word of any negativity when it came to Patty. So we too, as CSEA, are going to miss her and all that she has taken with her. But, you know, my topic tonight, I've been deliberating all day as to what I really wanted to say. First of all, I would really like to thank the classified employees for how they have stepped up. Some are working shorthanded. Maintenance workers are being required to do custodian work because of vacancies, absences. It just seems like they're just troopers, and wherever they were needed, they stepped up. They are certainly not working within their job descriptions, nor always within the contract, but we have tried to be lenient. But I'm not sure that the value that I feel for them is always recognized. So, you know, we have negotiations coming up now that the district has put in their proposals this sunshine. And it's obvious that one of the first things we're going to hear when we go back to the table is no money, no money. In fact, I've been hearing things like there's going to be perhaps layoffs and there will be some cuts made. that doesn't really show how our administration respects the work that we've done, the core values. You mentioned that to many of the field workers, and they say, what's the core values? We haven't seen any value. I'm hoping that the board will pay attention when you get negotiation reports or whatever, that you know and recognize that most of the cutoffs or cuts, the layoffs will be on the backs of the classified. Always has been, always will be. I hope when you're looking at the warrant, and I hope you're really looking at them and trying to understand where the money goes. It's not going to the employees. It's going to contractors. It's going to consultants. It's, everywhere else. It seems to me that every year the budget includes a cost of living. And whatever percentage of employees we have should get that percentage of that cost of living. But automatically the CBO puts it in the general fund and doesn't even mention the employees. So I think it's time, that our members, both LSEA and CSEA, are a priority, not at the bottom of the list. Let's be at the top of the list. People don't want to come to work for our district because the pay is too low. We can't even get subs anymore. They can make more money elsewhere. So please, board, listen to the people as they're talking about. I understand there's a budget talk tonight. Please pay attention to it and see how much is going to the people, the worker bees. It's just really sad that 16 years ago I came to work for this district and I was proud to work for it. I was proud of the administration. I was proud of, and our district workers. Those classified employees are working hard, but they too, what did we get? A prorated $400 last year. The admin got a full $400. Our teachers got a well-deserved $400. It should have been much more than that. It's time, okay, that we do something for the people that are out there in the field doing their work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have people wishing to address the board. And the first that I have on the list here is Christina Bailey.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yes.
Great. On the agenda this evening, there's a chart that's comparing the Pacifica School District average employee cost to the Pacifica School District average contractor cost. To get to this point of disclosure of information has taken several months and board meetings. However, the use of the data point of averages of both groups calls into question the validity of the presentation of the data. Harvard Business Review explains concisely that the flaw of averages is that whenever an average is used to represent an uncertain quantity, it ends up distorting the results because it ignores the impact of the inevitable variations. More specifically, the site Towards Data Science explains why averages are often wrong. Averages or means are meant to be a measurement across a diverse group of samples, often a cohort of individuals. The primary purpose of averages is to measure changes over time in the same sample group or cohort. It is in this application, or more so misapplications by using averages for different purposes, that the three most common errors occur. This can be seen in these areas: outliers that will pull the data in their direction, the assumption that the average is typical, and when humans are the data set, it's never typical. And lastly, the averages are often wrongly applied to the individual scenarios, even assuming that the data point falls on the normalized curve. Think of first-year teachers not taking insurance, or teachers that are on their partner's insurance. District employees don't reclaim those funds in their salary. Is this included in the average? Think of the differences between teachers at the beginning of the pay scale and teachers at the bottom right, averaged together, no longer displaying the nuances of disparate points. How about the contractors that receive insurance through their contracted agencies? Is that included in their average? Why are we not presented with the salary schedules of both categories, apples to apples? What is a district teacher of 5 years making in comparison to a contractor with 5 years of experience? Where do they both land on the same salary schedule? When we as district employees, when our district cannot pay our own bills, don't we want to know the bills we are paying? What's the intention of disguising the truth? Why would the district want to hide this information? For what purpose? Question why, who, and why. Why would we pay people more on the day that we hire them when we know that they will leave than we pay those that are committed district employees? Does the district want to solve the special education staffing problem for the long term? Are we satisfied putting on Band-Aids, or do we want to get to the heart of the issue? It was stated at the board meeting in October that the contractors would be taking a pay cut if they became district employees, and that the compensation discrepancy is due to the medical package. If that were true and this chart were valid and honest, that would not be so. This quite literally does not add up. We all know the saying, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Let's shine a light on this issue and clean up this mess. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Holly Fulgham Nutters. Holly, we cannot hear you yet. You're muted.
Did that work?
Yes. There you go.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Good evening. My name is Holly Fulgham Nutters, a 20-year resident of Pacifica, a 5-year volunteer in Pacifica schools, and a 20-year veteran as program manager for Project Read of the South San Francisco Public Library. I have the deepest gratitude and thanks for the work and dedication that the teaching staff, parents and families, administrators, and board members of the Pacifica School District have shown in these very challenging times. Like so many who have come before you, I recognize that the best way to teach is in a classroom with face-to-face interaction. However, in the last month, there has been an alarming rate of rise in the COVID-19 infection rate throughout California and in San Mateo County. As a person who is in one of the most vulnerable categories for risk of infection, my concern is for the safety of the entire school, families, and the community of Pacifica. Considering the increased infection rate, I wonder how the school district and board members will open the schools safely. I know that you have a target date in mid-January, but it seems more important to look at current trends rather than at a specific date. I urge you to delay the opening of schools until the rate of infection is under control. A safe, healthy community is of utmost concern. During times like this, times which cause worry and stress, a two-way system of communication is vital. Having listened to public comments in several board meetings, I have heard parents and teaching staff repeatedly say that their concerns and ideas have not been heard and that there has been little support, leaving some to feel abandoned by the school district. During a crisis, it's essential to come together as a whole, jointly solving problems. You are blessed with a talented teaching staff and parent body who are eager to be at the table to work with you to come up with realistic solutions. Would it be possible to create a standing agenda item used to address one or two of the themes you've heard during the public comments? It would go a long way to letting staff, parents, and members of the public know that you've heard their concerns and are taking steps to remediate them. Thank you for your time. Respectfully, Holly Fulgham Nutters.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Nicole Sayers. Is Nicole out there? Okay, we can try to come back to Nicole. We're going to move on to Jason Derricks. I'm wondering what's going on here.
I don't know. Kelly, could you make sure that I'm a co-host?
Heather, you are a co-host.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and I just saw Jason Derricks.
It's under Rebecca Derricks.
Rebecca.
But it's Jason who wants to speak.
Okay, I'm not seeing her email.
It's the tile says RD Rebecca Derricks.
RD.
Or if you see Nicole Sayers. There we got Jason coming up.
Okay,
Great.
perfect.
Jason, you're on.
All right, beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Taking my question tonight. And, so my question is I would just like to know where we're at as far as reopening the schools, and if there's a plan in place. Where are we with that plan? If we don't have a plan, why don't we have a plan yet? I understand there was a tentative date, possibly mid-November to reopen, and that's pushed out to mid-January. I'm wondering why we're kind of behind the surrounding districts as far as being proactive to reopening the schools. So I guess I kind of want to know where we're at as far as moving forward with reopening the schools. If anything has been done as of yet, or are we preparing the school to go back? Because I sympathize with everybody's issues, but let's not forget about the kids. This is incredibly stressful. I could speak for my own two kids being in this situation, and we need to do something to get back to school, if only part-time or anything like that, because like I said before, the surrounding districts are on a twice a week, 5 hour a day plan. So also adding to that, repeating myself, I want to know where we are with this and what's the plan. We really haven't heard anything other than tentative dates on what's going on.
And parent meetings getting better, but no decisions from the superintendent or.
Yes, I'm not seeing any decision making from the superintendent.
Just a parent.
Only one person can be the public comment, and we'll be answering most of those questions in tonight's presentation.
Okay, outstanding. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for your comment. So I saw Nicole. I see Nicole Sayers. So Nicole, you're up.
Yes.
You're muted, Nicole.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Thank you very much. I'm taking a little bit of a different track tonight from what we've been hearing. Tonight, I want to take the opportunity to offer a huge shout out to the Pacifica Lions Club for their continued support of our Pacifica School District. The school board should know that we recently received a $700 grant award for our special education preschool program at Lindemar Educational Center and at Sunset Ridge. The funding will be used to purchase engaging school activities with a clear focus on social emotional learning. When we return to in-person learning, this financial help will ensure that our 3 to 5-year-olds will return to classrooms that address their social emotional learning needs. The teachers will be purchasing items to help the students start in a comforting and secure classroom environment. It is important to the teachers that the transition back to school is as smooth as possible so that they can focus on teaching and preparing the preschoolers for kindergarten and for beyond. So again, a huge shout out to the Pacifica Lions Club for their continued support of our programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Kiyomi Arai.
Hello, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Kiyomi Arai, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher. I'm also a parent of a 4th grader and 7th grader in our district. I can't tell you how disappointed I feel from our district in the last couple of months. For the last few board meetings, many teachers have expressed the lack of support, communication, and training they haven't received. I am disappointed because meeting after meeting, the same thoughts have been shared in writing to board members and spoken here at board meetings, and not much has been changed. I didn't want to speak tonight because honestly, I thought it was pointless. I mean, I have plenty of other things to do. I have to prepare pickup bags for tomorrow's pickup day, report cards to do, weekly engagement minutes to figure out how to do and log in, lessons to create on Google Slides, correct work, respond to emails, learn how to use this reading assessment tool, create a unit math test, the list goes on. I'm only speaking because during my last meeting with the wonderful Patty McNally from Ocean Shore, I expressed how we teachers don't mean anything. Historically, we try to advocate for our students and our profession, but it goes nowhere. And it's only when parents bring issues up that administrators seem to take notice. And of course, I don't mean we don't mean anything, but when we share our words, we are often ignored, abandoned, or left to be on our own and figure it out on our own. And it is with Patty's last words to me last Thursday that she has never been so proud of us teachers. And in her magical, kind way, she reminded me that we do matter and we need to keep fighting to be heard. So I ask you board members and district officials to put a little Patty in your heart and feel the love and passion she had for teaching. I don't need to say it again. Review the last 3 board meetings. It's on YouTube. Reread your emails from us. It still all applies. We lack training. Please don't give us a list of the top 100 resources for teachers who teach virtually. We're not supported. I can't tell you how we untrained teachers are working into the night trying to help one another out. We are not your assistants or your proofreaders. You make the big bucks. We should not be the ones recreating report cards. It should not be our job to fix up your typos or misspelled words or grammatically incorrect words. We are not your PR specialist. You should be communicating with parents when schools are reopening. I am tired of telling them individually, it's not November, because that was the last piece of information they received. Teachers are also parents. And I am realizing that I'm not doing a great job with that. So when my 9-year-old is crawled underneath a desk in fetal position and crying softly, you know that he's not hiding to play on his iPad. When your kid finally has the breath to say, I feel so alone, your parent heart breaks. But you pull it together because it's not about me, it's about him. When he says, you are always so busy and stressed out, I don't want to ask you for help with my homework. It's a heart-wrenching wake-up call that even though I feel ignored, unsupported, and unheard by my district, I will not do that for my son or family because I know exactly how it feels. So with the inspiration of my son and the late Patty McNally, I am here to share my words and hope board members can offer their support to teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tammy Price.
Tammy Price is going to be one of our speakers during the COVID panel.
Understood. That's okay. Sorry about that. So the only other person is Janelle Jones, and she wants to speak on item 10F. So we are going to then move on to correspondence.
So would it be okay if we use this moment? I think my tech difficulties denied me the opportunity to honor Patty McNally. Would it be okay if I did that now?
That's absolutely fine.
I appreciate Megan leading the moment of silence. I know that that was not an easy thing for her to do. And and you all know that when my voice cracks is that it is because this is a devastating loss for our district. Ocean Shore, Ocean Shore is very much considered a family, and Patty's grade level teachers, Jonathan Harris and teacher Virginia, are just like they've lost a spouse. I know a number of teachers both at Ocean Shore and throughout the district that spoke with Patty nearly every day. She was a part of them as much as, and a part of their families as much as anyone. Her heart and her soul was in teaching. And from my personal perspective, she was, when we used to be in a communal setting, whether that was at a PEF event or another district event, she was the one that everyone gravitated to because she was so much fun and had great stories to tell. But the bottom line is that she is a teacher with an enormous, enormous heart, and we will miss her impact for a long time. As the superintendent in this difficult situation, you get to talk to a lot of people about the person that recently passed. And I cannot tell you the number of family members and staff members that have told me that Patty McNally changed their families' lives, that they changed her outcome. And it was just by her inclusive nature, how disarming she was with students, and how she would go to the end of the earth for students to be successful. So I know that we've already had the moment of silence, but I would not be able to start this meeting without describing the huge loss that our district has faced. And so for all of you with close relationships to teacher Patty, I am so sorry for your loss, because this is an enormous loss for our district, for Ocean Shore School, for LSEA, and for our students and families. So we will miss her. This is not her final tribute. I'm sure this is just the beginning of them. But we couldn't have the meeting without starting with Patty in mind.
Thank you very much. We're next going to move on to board superintendent communications. So which of my colleagues, who among my colleagues would like to start? Anybody?
I can go if you'd like.
Sure.
Sorry, after that, I have to see if I can find my notes. Actually, last week I had visited Ocean Shore to see the Frenda, and I had said hello to Patty that day. Had the regular calls with the elected officials and the updates on the county. As you know, the color of the county is not looking good, and it's probably going to quite possibly go to purple. They told us to just be aware that that's kind of where we're headed, to not be surprised. We had the Pacifica collaborative meeting, and then the Office of Ed call, and it's been quite a week.
Thank you. Who would like to go next?
I can go ahead and go. So I've actually done 2 site visits since the last meeting. I was at Sunset Ridge and IBL and talked to several teachers and principals and office staff just about next steps and how everybody's feeling about eventually having kids back on campus. Yeah, it was great to talk to everybody and get everybody's input. And I actually want to speak to one of the public comments. Is just I And I've seen visited 4 schools over the last month and a half, and I hope to get through all the rest before in another month. But I am 100% seeing teachers working their fingers to the bone and using every ounce of energy to give to our kids and to their own kids and families. And I really do recognize that they are very stressed and stretched. So I just want you to know that I definitely understand that and hear you. And we are definitely supporting you and hearing every word you say. I was also on the county calls that Elizabeth and Vern have been on. And the other thing that's going to come up, it's coming up in the pandemic framework or task force that we're talking about later on. But again, I just want to reiterate, there is a San Mateo County pandemic framework that is put out. It was just updated with travel restrictions or travel. But I want to note certain pages. I would like if you could look, the most important and the most communal of that entire piece is pages 22 through 29, which is pillar 1. That involves all of us. And I really encourage my fellow board members, staff, to take a minute to read those pages, because I really think it will help illuminate questions and then make people also feel more safe as we move forward to the next step. But I know we're going to talk a lot more about that as we move on. So that's my comments for today.
Thank you. Trustee Villalobos or Trustee Doggett, do you want to go next?
I can just share. I don't have any communications in particular to share, but I did finish up my master's in governance last week. So I finally finished. So that's all I wanted to share.
Hey, congratulations. Great. Good job. Trustee Villalobos, do you want to go next?
Sure.
Okay.
So I attended the CPAC meeting. That was like right after the last meeting. Julie's leading it now, and I'm just very happy with the engagement from the parents, and so I hope that continues. Elna Flynn video, it was very odd to me because, I love the Elna Flynn dinner because we get to hear everything. So it was just, COVID times and we had to watch a video. I also went to the town hall for the CPAC, and they focused on social emotional learning and specifically the restorative practices. And Natalie is getting her master's in I'm so sorry, I'm blanking out. She's getting her master's in the restorative practices, which I think is wonderful, because I think the first time we heard those words was maybe 4 years ago. And so it seems like, it's starting to come into play. I just want to make a note there too, that in the town hall, that parents noted that finding the Zoom link to our meetings is very difficult. And there is an old link on there. And so I'm just wondering if we have a tech person who could make it, one of the first things you see when you visit the homepage instead of searching around and having to navigate, just because, I'm hearing a lot that we need to communicate more, and that would just be a starting point. So I wanted to thank Natalie too, and thank Julie for holding those. Also, I did a workshop on the National Museum of the American Indian website, and it was a 26-minute workshop on transforming teaching and learning about American Indians. And I can tell you, I'm very depressed as an American Indian listening to that. Some of the talking points I'll give you is that right now in the 2019 Pearson Social Studies book for 5th graders, this is just a quote. Then in 1828, gold was discovered on Cherokee land in Georgia. Suddenly, this American Indian land was very valuable. How could settlers take possession of it? So what the speaker was trying to say is we are looking through the lens of being the colonist instead of the American Indian who valued the land and everything on it. And so we have a long way to go putting that perspective into our textbooks. The other one was, under this law, the US government gave American Indians unsettled prairie land. That's also in the 2019 Pearson textbook. So of course we know that Indigenous people were here first and they took away the land, but then they gave the land, making it sound like it was gifted to them. The social studies right now, 87%, there's a group that's doing a study, 87% of the social studies on American Indians is before 1900. After 1900, there's very little inclusion about American Indians. And a lot of states right now, there's 15 states who have no standards of American Indian social studies, which leads to 40% of the people that were surveyed in those states didn't even know that American Indians were still alive. And so they're pointing to, well, if you're not learning about it in school, then it's not there. So I just wanted to share that. And there's a link on the Native American Museum website if you want to listen to it. It's only 26 minutes. And so it just really makes a point that as educators, we need to look to Indigenous people, Indigenous leaders who can give us information so they can learn the right things. The other thing I did is today I listened up on the update on the county numbers, and it does look like we'll go into purple again. And then lastly, I did a site visit at Cabrillo today, and I was able to go over and see that for the bond project, they're still waiting on some tables, and because of the rain, it's going to be a little delayed. And also the library. Well, if you go into Cabrillo's library, they have no place for a class of even 20 to sit down and listen to the librarian read a book. And so, you know, that is in the bond measure that they'll be working on. And most importantly, I talked to some teachers. I briefly listened in on a Zoom class for the first graders, and she was doing sight words. So, you know, that's just something that we can teach, sight words, on Zoom. And then I talked to a group of teachers, and it resonates with some of the things I'm hearing in public comment, that the number one concern is safety and returning to school and having communication on what the plan is, or the non-plan, or just an update, but to communicate with the parents and the teachers so that the community knows where we're at. And as far as the safety goes, I'm just curious if we're really following the guidelines that we're supposed to be following right now as far as the mask wearing. The cleaning, there were 6 of us in this room. So I'm assuming that there's going to be a deep cleaning of that room, since I'm not part of anybody's bubble there. And so I think we need a clear guideline resent out to the teachers and to the staff and to the principals that sort out, this is what we need to do to be safe in school. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and if it's the classified, having a checklist so that the janitors know exactly what to do. because we all need to be safe during, this time. And we don't have kids back there right now, but we will, sooner, maybe January. So I just think it's critical that we have these guidelines. And I wrote that down. What pages was it? 22 to 29. Just like Linda said, Pillar 1 goes over all of the county guidelines that we're supposed to be following as far as school goes. And I just want to make it clear that we need to be following these now, not when the kids come in, but now. And maybe it would be helpful if somebody could make a cheat sheet so that it's right there, so that the teachers, the staff, the parents, whoever requests one, it's there instead of, I'm not even sure how many pages the pandemic framework is, maybe 50, instead of paging through everything trying to find it. So I'm hoping that's something we can do. So I just want to let the teachers and the staff know that I appreciate them. And, I want to support you guys because, this pandemic is, something that we did not even expect. But I truly believe that this is something that we need to do together to get through it. And so I just want you to know that I do support you. And I sent a communication to one of the LSEA presidents about Patty McNally. But I can't read it because I'm emotional. But I appreciated everything she did. And the last time I saw her, she had a smile and some kind words.
Thank you, Trustee Villalobos. I don't have a whole lot to add. I've been meeting regularly with Superintendent Olson and attending some of these other meetings. I guess the only thing that I really wanted to say is these are incredibly tumultuous times, and we've gone through a lot in a relatively short period of time. And I just feel like right now is a crucial period, and we have to be more vigilant than ever. And I want to dispel any fears that we're trying to rush back to get kids in school. I think our number one point when this all broke was that we would not get back to school in person until it was absolutely safe. And so I'm looking forward to hearing the update. I sort of see this as the highlight of this meeting, to tell you the truth, which is the update on the return to school task force. And I think that it's going to help answer a lot of the questions that Jason Derricks brought up earlier on in public comment. But I really feel right now, in a sense, San Mateo County has done very well relative to other places in both the state and the country. And in some ways, I feel like we're lagging indicator in terms of, our trend is going to follow everybody else, maybe not as high as everybody else, but it's just going to follow as a lagging indicator of what's already happened. So right now, we really can't sort of relax. We have to be vigilant about mask wearing, washing our hands, staying in our bubbles. Especially since they just announced that there are 2 vaccines that look very promising. I mean, nobody wants to be that person that gets COVID right before the vaccine comes out. So I think we just have to triple our efforts on this. And I'm just calling out to the community that we have to do that. And most certainly, at that point where it's safe to get back to school, not that we feel it's safe, but when it's safe to get back to school, we're going to have to keep that up for a while as well, even after it's safe, to ensure that our schools are safe, and everybody from our teachers to district staff to our kids, and especially the families, are safe from this. So everyone stay safe. Try not to travel or have big group things. I'm just going to put that out there. Okay. I think we should move on now. we're on to district goals. So excuse my voice. I'll do my best here to enunciate. The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details for each of those district goals can be accessed on our district website at www.pacificasd.org. Item A, public hearing, resolution number 2020-11-18-A, increasing school facility fees. Ms. Peterson.
Thank you, Trustee Levin. Developer impact fees are collected when there is construction in Pacifica so that the funds can be provided to schools for expansion as needed. The state increased the rate which school districts can charge, and Jefferson Union High School District recently implemented the increase this past month. In order for Pacifica to share in the increase, Pacifica obtained a new study from Jack Schroeder and Associates, and it was determined that the district is eligible to increase the rates. The study is attached and indicates that the future needs of the district justify the fee increase. For Pacifica, the change would allow the district to receive $2.45 per square foot for residential and 40 cents per square foot for commercial. This represents 60% of the fee, which Jefferson is currently collecting. Tonight, we are asking the Board of Trustees to approve the resolution to increase school facility fees, which will be deposited into the Capital Outlay Fund and utilized with bond proceeds to implement our facility master planning projects. So the attachments are included in the board agenda, and we did adhere to all of the public postings and newspaper ads as indicated. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the trustees may have at this time.
Thanks so much. Are there any questions regarding this resolution to increase the school facility fees? And I could call on, I've got a different order now, so Trustee Brocchini, you're first on my list.
No questions.
Okay, Trustee Burdall.
No questions.
Trustee Villalobos.
No questions.
And Trustee Doggett.
No questions.
Okay, so I just have one quick question. I mean, it looks like since 2018, since the last time we did this, the fees have gone up by about 8% and 9%, which is nice. But I don't have a good indication, and I certainly don't have a good memory of how much money does this actually bring in, or has this brought in?
So it has varied from year to year. It's been many years since we've used the fees, but it can be anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000. It's all dependent on the construction in Pacifica, and not just new construction, but if people are remodeling their homes or doing additions. So we get monthly checks from Jefferson, and it's really unpredictable. I couldn't tell you how much we would get until we actually receive the funds, but it has varied from year to year.
Okay, thank you. But I mean, that gives me a good ballpark, 50,000, 100,000, something like that. So it's not a saving grace, I guess is what I'm saying, but it helps. Every little bit helps. So I'm not going to balk at it. Okay, I think that, well, I would like to ask if we have a motion to approve the resolution number 2020-11-18A, increasing school facility fees.
I'll motion to approve the resolution to increase the school fees.
Okay, and I will second that. Ms. Alves, will you please take the vote?
Trustee Burdall?
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini?
Yes.
Trustee Doggett?
Yes.
Trustee Levin?
Yes.
Trustee Villalobos?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. We're on to item B, certificated and classified staff. Moving to permanent status, Ms. O'Flaherty.
Thank you. I first would like to give an overview of how an employee becomes a permanent employee. Classified staff become permanent after 6 months of employment, provided they have completed satisfactory evaluations. Fully credentialed certificated staff become permanent on their first day of their 3rd year of working in the district, provided they too have completed satisfactory evaluations. Tonight is a time to extend our congratulations to classified and certificated staff who have achieved permanent status. It's a great accomplishment, and we are appreciative of their service to our students and our community. The following staff members have gained permanent status. For our classified staff, Mary Shields, Library Media Technician at Valimar School, Yvette Torrento, Paraprofessional at Ortega School, Samuel Marzalek, Paraprofessional at Valimar School, Aisha Siddiq, School Assistant, Sunset Ridge, Sylvia Roca Salonda, School Assistant at Valimar School, Eric Hernandez, Technology Support Technician, District Office, Virginia Clements, Paraprofessional, Ocean Shore School, Alana O'Neill, Library Media Technician, Ingrid B. Lacey School, Mary Piltster, Paraprofessional, Ortega School, Ellen Crane, Paraprofessional, Ortega School, Shauna Kopersky, Paraprofessional, Cabrillo School. For our certificated staff, Charlene Boyson, teacher at Valimar School, Gina Miglio, teacher at Valimar School, Lauren Davidson, teacher at Sunset Ridge, Madeline Ham, teacher at Sunset Ridge, Donna Liu, teacher at Sunset Ridge, Noreen Abalencia, teacher at Ortega School, Valerie Lucchetti, teacher at Ortega School, Lisa Garcia, teacher at Ingrid B. Lacey School, Samantha Johns, teacher at Cabrillo and Valimar Schools, Kimberly Leidecker Hadid, teacher at Cabrillo School, Michelle Wagner Keeney, teacher at Cabrillo School, and Jessica Mercado, teacher at Sunset Ridge. Congratulations to you all.
Thanks so much. And thank you to all the staff that have made it in your permanent status. Thanks for all of your continued effort and dedication to the district. The next item we have is a district proposal for CSEA negotiations, and that is back to you, Ms. O'Flaherty.
Thank you. This is an action item that the district is bringing forward tonight. The public notice, known as the Sunshine Provisions of the Educational Employment Relations Act, requires Pacifica School District to give the public notice of the initial proposal for the 2020-2021 contract negotiations prior to beginning the negotiation process. The district has an interest in exploring Article 8, modifications to the work year if necessary to address economic conditions.
Sorry, I was muted. Are there any questions regarding the district proposal for CSE negotiations? And Trustee Burkini, you're first.
No questions.
Okay, Trustee Berdal.
And no questions.
Trustee Villalobos.
No questions.
And Trustee Doggett.
No questions.
Okay, and I have no questions on this item. Do I have a motion to approve the district proposal for CSEA negotiations?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Ms. Alves, will you please take the roll call vote?
Trustee Berdal,
Yes.
Trustee Burkini,
Yes.
Trustee Doggett,
Yes.
Trustee Levin,
Yes.
Trustee Villalobos.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you very much. Next is item D, COVID-19 update and task force update. Superintendent Olson.
Okay, I will get us started. Mr. Lucy, would you put up the presentation? Actually, have we been putting the presentations up, or do you people? Let's do the presentation, and then for the discussion, we can take that down for conversation. Perfect. Okay, so the presentation that I wrote when we posted the board agenda on Friday is different than a presentation I would write at this point. Last Friday, San Mateo County numbers with being in the second tier, being in orange, things looked very good. Those numbers were quite low. 1.3% positivity rate was very good, and 2.2 adjusted case rate. That looked fantastic. Well, on Monday, all over the state of California, those numbers changed, and we went from our orange level up to the red level, but the adjusted case rate doubled. And just like everyone has mentioned, is that we do expect that that will continue to go up. What I read today is that 94% of Californians live in a purple county. And so this is the lagging trend. Even though things are going quite well in San Mateo, we do expect in the short term for things to get worse before they get better. So on Friday, as we wrote this plan, I was going to move, you can keep going, Will. And one more, please. So here we are now in red. We'll just keep moving along. So on Friday, we were going to talk about the plans that we were making in our task force. And I think our task force had a great night last night, and we'll have a report from that. But we really, our previous meeting, we focused on the health and safety plan and the hybrid plan. We received in an asynchronous week for the committee, we received feedback from over 30 people on the plans. And so we were moving along swimmingly. We'll keep going, Will. And just to talk about the work is that we had the introduction to the plans. The special ed team met and discussed barriers and concerns. And then last night, the site-based teams and a special education group worked on the school site planning considerations, and they made great progress. So a lot of really thoughtful ideas. Some came easily and some not so easily, but it was great work. And our next meeting is on December 1st. So we would like to give task force members the opportunity to speak. And so I would defer to Jerry or Jerry Newland or Megan Ellsburn. Which one would like to go first? Why don't we, can we?
I can go. Perfect. I got unmuted.
Perfect.
LSCA was happy that we were able to break up into our school sites and get down to business and start really figuring out the logistics of how to get kids back safely, kids and staff back safely to the sites. So we were in our small site groups, and I think most of our site groups feel we got a lot of progress done, but we want to bring back this information to our sites and get some feedback. And we're looking forward to having that time.
Perfect. Ms. Newland.
Yes, I have to say that after we finished with our site, which would be the SDC environment, I was kind of motivated to and excited about what we accomplished. You know, our first step was to see how we would even get the students into the school, and we spent quite a bit of time on that. And I think we came up with some real good ideas. And we need to, like Megan just said, take it back and talk to some of the other SDC personnel, see what their feelings are. But it was a very productive, hour and 45 minutes. And I'm looking forward to December 1st again.
Thank you, Jerry. Tammy Price is a parent. She's an IBL parent, but she also is a preschool teacher in another school district. So, Ms. Price, would you like to share your experience?
Happy to. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Great. So like many parents that came on tonight, I was initially frustrated by us not hearing a lot of information about going back. So I threw my hat into the ring to be on this task force, and again, pleasantly surprised at how we are moving forward and quickly. There were some decisions made before we got onto this task force, and we've moved into groups last week or yesterday and worked really nicely on trying to configure, how we can get in. It is a lot to take in that I think us as parents don't necessarily understand. There are many, many logistics that have to be figured out to make sure that every child can get into this, as far as looking at the actual space outside the school to configure how far and close they can stand together. How do we get them in the door? How do we move them to their rooms? So there is a lot that goes into it, and it is definitely going to take time. It's not an easy task. As Dr. Olson has said, I work in a school district in which they have been back, and they are doing well being back and running at full force. So I know that we can get there, and I am striving to make sure that we get all the things in place as we can, so to make sure that their kids are back safely, as well as teachers are back safely. It is a long process, and I think we are trying our best to move as quickly as we can through that process.
Great, thank you very much. For the principals, Ellie Cundiff.
So like other people said, we felt it was a very productive meeting last night. One of the parents in my group, similar to Tammy, had thanked us because she hadn't realized how much work had gone on in the background, and that she was just assuming kids would go back and that there was a lot of work going on. This morning, I had a meeting with my classified staff, and we discussed the topics that we talked about yesterday and came up with, and I plan to bring it back to my teachers and staff and keep working on some solutions. So I think it was a very productive night.
Great, thank you. Thank you. So about the next 6 slides are just, they're not even a summary of the health and safety or the hybrid plan, but they are just examples of returning to in-person learning, that we would do so through the hybrid model, which would be 2 days in person and 3 days out of school. And the reason to do that is that would limit the number of students that were on campus and in a classroom at any one time. We're not going to go into great detail about this. With those numbers rising, we are going to continue to work on our plan. We're going to continue to make the changes in our school, but I'm not seeing us hit that third week in January. I think about that time is when we would come to you with a mostly formed plan. But it doesn't make sense for us to push, knowing that it's likely after January 1st that the case numbers would be higher, and that in addition, people's fears of their safety would be decreased. I mean, the fears would be increased. And so at this point, we are going to continue planning. Our task force is going to continue to meet every 2 weeks. We're going to get tight on these procedures. We have a professional development day in January, so that all the people that will eventually return to school will have training on the best practices in terms of safety, and continue to work on those site-based decisions on that. So we're going to move really relatively quickly. Keep going, Will. So just in general, like in the hybrid model, is if we looked at Wednesday as being a day that all students would be working from home, that there would be a deep cleaning and disinfecting on Wednesdays and Friday afternoons and evenings, just to make sure that there's some extra cleaning there. That the MERV 13 are furnace filters, and that they are one of the things that you want to do is get air moving through, but MERV 13 is also good for smoke because it catches particulate matter. So we have MERV 13 filters and would change them every 4 months. This right here, the face coverings, is absolutely one of the most important things we can do anywhere we go. And if I'm wearing a mask and you're wearing a mask, we're double covered. And that is very important. We get, sometimes in the Bay Area, we get a little bit lulled because it is a practice for people to wear masks. But if we leave the Bay Area all over California, not everyone is wearing a mask. So if you are traveling in California, we ask you please to wear a mask. If you are having an indoor meal outside of your immediate family. When you're not eating, please wear a mask. We cannot underestimate the value of those masks. We're going to keep moving. Just going quickly, we did spend a fair amount of time yesterday talking about temperature and wellness checks. We have a number of the thermometers that will be taking students' temperatures and have a checklist that both students and staff will complete every day. The other big dilemma for each of the staff yesterday was determining the room that students that don't pass the temperature screening will be placed in, a room relatively close to the office where the student can be kept safe, but picked up as soon as possible from their parent. We're going to move again pretty quickly, is that we're using the contact tracing and communication protocol even though we don't have students in school at this point. We are having a few staff members that are close contacts of a contact, or so we're just using this process. We've unfortunately had a little bit of practice using it, but it seems to work well. We will make sure that all employees know that if they have a positive test, that they need to make sure that they let us know that right away. When employees live in San Mateo County, we learn that easily. It's a little more challenging if they live in another county. So that's a super important piece. In terms of a return to school, having that be very tight is certainly important, is that should there be a positive case, that we be able to respond and also provide notification to employees that may have been exposed. I'm not going to go into great detail around the hybrid learning. I'm going to leave this on here and we'll have Will just move through relatively quickly. The hybrid learning schedule in 6th through 8th grade may be more challenging. I think in a K-8 environment, it probably is relatively easy, where the students stay in the same group and a teacher could move. It's a little more challenging at IBL, but again, I feel like we've got some great brains working on trying to solve that one. So keep moving. Keep moving. This is up here so that if someone wants to look. So here's my slide that, as we learned with COVID, is that the moment you say something, the next thing changes. And so last Friday, I was saying that we're really looking to start on the 21st of January. We want to bring to you our plan for approval on the 20th of January. I believe that when San Mateo goes into purple, we won't be able to return with only simply a plan, but the other piece to that is that we will be able to return when we have enough staff and families that are interested in returning. And if the numbers are continuing to escalate, there's fear in that piece. So we will watch those. My medical friends would call it watchful waiting. We will watch every week as they come out and watch those numbers. The pandemic recovery framework, we've had a couple of plugs on the pandemic recovery framework, and I'll just hold this up. The important one for the holidays is guidance on travel. So really encouraging not to be in a plane or a train, to travel only with your family, to celebrate in a very small group. And if you should take on a high-risk activity during travel, you'll be asked to quarantine for 14 days just to make sure. For example, one of the things that you may do, I am traveling and but not taking on any high-risk activities, but I will make sure that when I come back that I have a few days before I return to work, and just shortly after that, that I will have a COVID test just to make sure that my coworkers aren't exposed to something if I should be asymptomatic positive. So we'll keep moving. Keep moving. So when we look up, can we go back to our to-do list? So this is our to-do list in terms of where we are. And if I look at, we are working on hiring additional custodians. The question around when we set up the rooms is a good one. I think we can set them up. The question is, do we start to put furniture in storage? And that's really hard to say. Unfortunately, we are all experienced with thinking it was going to go one way and knowing, and then it ending up not going that way. And so every time we have a big expense, that's where I think we want to think about what's the best way and what's the best time to do that. We do want to have the plan done, and we want to have our schools and classrooms set up to the degree that when the numbers do come down, that we would be able to return to school within 2 weeks. So that's where we are there. I think the Return to School Task Force is a great one there. As the participants have said, the real challenge is how many different details that clearly couldn't be made by somebody that isn't deeply embedded in that school. Our 6th through 8th grade solutions need some further expanding. Like I said, I think it's a little different in a K-8 than the comprehensive middle school, but I'm confident that the plans will be there. We're looking to bring the return to school plan to you on January 20th. After you approve it, then it would go through the county. We can have an approved plan and still not return to school. We could set a criterion-based return, or if by this date the numbers are this, but it is important to continue doing this work. We just don't have to push it through and rush it. And the sites are developing their plans. And then on an ongoing basis is Alexis O'Flaherty in HR is continuing to meet with employees regarding their concerns in terms of returning to school. So at this point, we are happy to entertain any questions or give you the opportunity for discussion.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation. I want to open it up to my trustees first before taking the opportunity to ask any questions. So who would like to go first?
I'll go ahead.
Sure.
No one else wants to? So it looks great. I had read all the notes from the previous task force and was glad to see that all the questions I was having were coming up through that task force. So I'm happy to hear that. I did hear Ellie mention she was that she was getting that information to her staff, and I just want to make sure all the other principals are passing that information on. And again, just reiterate that things we can do is like put stickers on the ground and start to think about desks and just getting in the habit of wiping and that kind of thing. But it certainly sounds like it's on the way, so I'm really happy to hear that progress. So that's my comment.
Thanks so much. Who would like to go next? Or does anybody, not that you have to go next, but whoever has questions, either Elizabeth or Laverne.
Yeah. Go ahead, Laverne.
Vern, you're muted.
Sorry
there you
about
go.
that.
There you go.
I have a couple questions. I'm just wondering if we have done a deep cleaning of the schools yet, if that was done during the summertime, or if we're doing the classrooms, the libraries, when are we doing the deep cleanings? And then this is the one I'm really curious about. Will other people, whether it be a principal, another teacher, a staff member, will they be allowed to enter an active classroom with children in there? I'm just curious. Or will the entrance, to the classroom be just the teacher and the kids and nobody else until they leave? So that's my other question. And then, is there any way, because there is a big concern about the communication getting out to parents, if we can have a summary written about what we just heard from everybody and sent out to parents, staff, teachers, anybody who wasn't able to make the meeting tonight. I just feel like we need to get the communication out there. This is what is happening, and this is where we're going. Also, I'm just wondering too about the task force members. Is everybody showing up for their task force duties? Or is there a challenge with getting somebody to show up and participate? And if there is somebody who's not participating actively, is there a backup plan to replace that person? And so those are the questions that I have.
Just only those 4 questions? Okay, let's see if I can remember any of them. I will let Josie ask the question about deep cleaning. We did do deep cleaning this summer.
Yes, actually, the custodians have had more time for deep cleaning because staff were out of the buildings for so long. So we have continued to do deep cleaning and special projects assigned by the principals. What they're really focused on now as people return is disinfecting, because the disinfecting is really different than deep cleaning. But yes, they have done deep cleaning and continue to do deep cleaning.
Another question that you asked is, the task force members, typically when I'm in the task force, I'm not taking attendance, but I will check in with the principals around making sure each of their members were there. I know that from the LSEA perspective, unfortunately, Patty was one of the really important pieces of our task force member. And we also found out yesterday when we had the Ortega team break into the team and the special educators break into their team, all of the CSEA and LSEA employees from Ortega went to the special ed team. And so it was Mr. Jackson and 2 parents, and they joined Sunset Ridge. And it actually was a great group because the group size was a little bit bigger. And sometimes in those situations, to be able to learn from a larger group and work together brought a few more ideas. So I think there may be some rounding of those groups. Nicole Sayers will join us as Jerry Newland retires. So there will be a little bit of changing on that. Laverne, can you help remind me what some of your other questions were?
Yes, I'd just like a little follow-up on that. For instance, what if there is a task force member who has not been at any of the meetings? Is there a way that we can have a substitute as soon as possible?
Sure. So I'm not aware of that situation, but I'm also not saying it's not happening. I'm just not aware of that situation. So if it were an LSEA member, LSEA would replace that person. If it were a CSEA member, they would replace. If it's a parent, we'll have the principal select a parent to join us on that end. The group is 50. I mean, it's 50 people. So that's a pretty big group to begin with. And your next question?
Will other people be allowed into an active classroom?
That actually is a great question. I think to the degree it can be controlled, no. So situations, as much as possible, you want it to be the class, the students, and 1 teacher, maybe an additional person. That's an ideal situation. But you think about sometimes some of our special education settings where our students receive multiple services. And so in a situation, I'll think about maybe a speech therapist where they can't just work with 1 class. So they would work, multiple students. That would be a situation where the speech therapist would increase their level of PPE. So, and then depending on what the speech piece is, how much they have to see his or her mouth is one challenge. The other piece that you can help control that is increasing the level of testing. So if we tested most employees every 3 weeks, then maybe we would test someone that worked amongst classes or even really amongst schools. We would test that person every week. And that way, you know, it's never a perfect system, but it's, again, mitigating the risk. I think you're right on to what you're trying to do in that situation is just trying to mitigate the risk and be aware of the testing. You had one more question.
I just thought of another one because we kind of went quickly through the hybrid learning. And I'm just concerned about, since we're on technology all the time now, when something happens to a teacher's computer or a link's not working, do we have a plan so that somebody can run out to them? Like I know Nelson, you know, back when I was at Ortega as a volunteer, Nelson was like Johnny on the spot, helping us with any tech issues we had. And so, you know, we're here in this situation now where we need this. So I'm just wondering if there's a plan for when something goes awry with the online hybrid classes, how are teachers going to get some service from the district office, you know, as soon as possible so that our kids, you know, get to learn the next day too?
I mean, you ask a big question there because there are so many things that could go wrong, right? So yesterday we had a situation where a switch to one of our very old servers went down. And so Zoom, like across the district, there was no internet. 2 days before, we didn't have wireless in the front part of the district office. When technology isn't working in a distance learning situation, it's much more noticeable. It used to happen frequently, but because we weren't on it or so dependent on it, it wasn't as obvious. So it really depends on what the level of need and repair is. In this situation with the switch to the server, it took us probably a half a day to diagnose what happened and to do the workaround on that situation. So it really just depends on what it is. We have one tech person, one IT tech person. So there's we were able to get that diagnosed, but you know, one tech person serving 6 schools is a real challenge, and we may be coming to you as trustees to see if we can up that level of support. We know right now it's not enough.
So I'm just one more question on that. Are there work orders? Is there a system of work orders for the tech tickets that you guys get and prioritizing them? Or what do you do? Do you notify the person who's requesting the service, or how does that work?
I actually might defer to Will on that question on how the tech ticket system works. Not yet.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Sorry. Yes, we do have a tech system, a tech ticket system, and it's actually at the bottom of all of our signatures. You know, like my name signature and Christy Novak and Eric Hernandez and stuff. And within that, they can click on this ticket system, and there's one for families and parents, and there's one for staff, and those are closely monitored. They're checked regularly during the day. Also, Eric Hernandez and Christy have both kind of built up connections with staff in particular that they're able to connect with them pretty quickly, even through this ticket system preferably, but even if they weren't, they were able to jump on it. And we've had some situations where, you know, Zoom issues have occurred, you know, that morning, and then we were on it right away as quickly as we can. Now, 100%, are we able to solve those issues right away? Sometimes not. Yesterday was a situation where the entire internet in the district office went down in late afternoon. And so, you know, near the end of the day, there was some Zoom classes that were affected by that because of a bigger issue. But it was solved by this morning. So we were back running and up this morning. So, but I mean, it's a challenge with limited staff to do it, but we do have a ticket system that allows for that communication to go back and forth.
Thank you.
Did we answer all of your questions?
There's one more.
Did we get an answer on if we could have a summary of this presentation sent out to the community?
So in the previous time that we met with the task force, I was going to talk about doing parent forums and gathering to listen to parents. Were they ready to come back to school? What were they thinking? And the parents on the committee said, you know what you need to do? You need to communicate. You need to absolutely communicate. People need to hear from the superintendent, because if you bring parents together, all they want to hear are the details of what those plans are. And so I am committed to doing regular staff updates and parent updates. I have been challenged to do that because I just in terms of time. So I was sitting down on Sunday when we got the bad news about Patty's passing, but I will commit on a regular weekly cadence to communicate with both parents and staff.
Thank you.
Trustee Burdall, I think you were next.
Okay, it was just a quick question. With the HVAC system, the MERV 13 filters, I know during the fire, I don't think all of the systems could handle that type of filter for a long term. At the time, I think they suggested we could use it short term for a fire, maybe for a week, but then it would end up burning out the motors. So I'm wondering if having the MERV 13s in there for 4 months at a time, you know, basically if our system has the ability to do that, or is that something that maybe the bond money has to upgrade first?
I'm looking at Josie looking for her mute button.
Yeah, we have the filters installed, and I haven't heard of any issues. It's a very good question. To my understanding, our systems are handling them fine, but I can ask Cece and George for further details. But they're installed in the classrooms, and I guess there's not a lot of people in there, so I don't know how much they've been running, but we can do an analysis and look at that. That's a very good
question. I'd heard that a lot of times they burn out the motor. Basically it's such a drag on the motor, and that even some of the local hospitals were able to upgrade them in their newer wings, but not their older wings. And seeing that most of our schools are older ones, I just want to make sure that we don't end up, you know, incurring a cost of replacing the whole HVAC system if we burn out the motors.
We will definitely look into that. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So I want to give my other colleagues, either Trustee Doggett or Trustee Burkini.
I just had a quick question. I'm not sure if I heard Superintendent Olson touch on it a little bit, but the testing regimen, could you just quickly go over that, what that will be for, what it will be when kids get back in school, what the testing will be for the teachers?
Sure. Remember, we signed the agreement with curative testing, and for me, once every 2 weeks for most classroom teachers seems like the right number. The state requirement is once every 2 months. Kind of a moderate way would be to go once a month. So either every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. But I think every 2 weeks is a nice conservative way to go. It's 1 week half the staff would get tested. The next week the other half of the staff would get tested. People that move between schools would be tested every week. You always want to have the ability to go up in your testing, and so that's one of the reasons why we wouldn't test staff every week. But with the curative testing, it is a self-administered test that a employee completes in the presence of a monitor, a staff member that would be in charge of monitoring that. It could be either a mouth swab or a nasal swab. The same swab is used. It's the employee's choice. They swab, put it in the container, it goes, gets mailed out, and typically school districts that are using it here within 48 hours. And so that's what the regimen would be. In terms of on a daily basis, we would ask both students and staff to complete a simple checklist about symptoms to ensure that they're asymptomatic, and just a temperature via the forehead would be what we would ask of both students and staff on a regular basis. Linda?
Yeah, I just have one more follow-up question. So it was mentioned about deep cleaning and that's happening, but when I went around, I'm not sure that has, or maybe it's increased and has fixed that, but I'm not sure that it had actually happened at a couple of the sites. And unfortunately, I heard some colorful stories around that. So I guess what I'm wondering is who's the point person that's, not to put anybody on the spot, but who's checking that? Who's making sure that the deep cleaning is actually happening, not just checked off on a box that's turned in?
Custodians report to George Machado, who is the facilities director and director of facilities maintenance and operations. The challenge in a district our size with a large number of employees and for one supervisor is that it's hard to supervise that. So we are going to partner with the principals around making sure that that cleaning gets done. The other piece that we will work with the custodians around is just a culture of this is a safety issue now, right? Like it used to be a cleanliness issue and now it's a safety issue. So just making sure they know how important their job is and having a checklist of things that will happen in each classroom and each space. And if it's not happening, asking the staff member that works in that classroom to get in touch with the principal and say, hey, it doesn't look like my trash was emptied. Again, I've talked about this where maybe in the past we'd say, oh, so-and-so didn't get to my trash. But when we come back to school with students, those things have to happen. Like it's not negotiable. So it's more of changing our culture in our district as well as just the accountability. Safetyness is absolutely the most important piece.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I just have a few questions. Actually, first, I just have a statement where I would just like to thank all of the participants in, all the different roles, from, parents to LSEA to CSEA to principals, for dedicating their time and energy to helping us put together a plan that everybody can get on board with. And I was very excited to hear about the perceived progress from last night's meeting and up until now, and the next step, which is of course to go out to sort of all of the stakeholders at each of the sites and not only share the progress that you've made, but to get input from all of them. So I'm assuming that's really the next step. That's what I heard to this process, and then to further develop plans based on that interaction. I guess I also just want to make one more statement on that, is that while we're putting together a plan that is certainly Pacifica School District specific, it would be great if we could try to learn from our peer districts, because all of the districts around us are having the exact same conversations, right? And I'm not going to say that we should necessarily adopt what other people are doing, but we can certainly learn what strategies other districts are considering, and then try to adopt the ones that we feel are the strongest or the best fits for us. So a little bit of let's not try to reinvent the wheel if there's something else out there. And I'm not sure what is going to facilitate that information gathering, but I would suggest that somebody, Superintendent Olson, look into it. Not to put you on the spot, but that would be really good. So my questions really come in. Obviously the plan is it's a living document right now, but I did notice that, like on the slide with hygiene practices, it was really all about wellness checks, and it sounds like we haven't gotten down to specific hygiene practices, but I'm sure those conversations are happening. So maybe that's more of a statement than a question. Here's a real question, though.
But can I interrupt you for just 1 second? Is that those 3 slides on each health and safety and hybrid is just a model, or just like this is like
Okay.
an example of that. It certainly is not all of that, nor any of the details. It was just like, we want to introduce you to some of the level of detail that we're going into.
Perfect.
It is not everything.
Oh, yeah, obviously. Okay. Well, and also it's not, the header of the section said health and safety plan draft. So I really read into that draft. So this isn't necessarily a draft, I guess. These are sort of more examples of things that you're going to have to think about as you complete the draft. So here is a question about what the thoughts are on contact tracing. The things, one of the bullets there really leads me to believe that we sort of report the contact. We report a case to the county investigator, and then they kind of take it from there. But I wanted to make sure that we're not going to be sort of overly burdened with doing the investigation itself, because quite frankly, I'm not sure if we're equipped to do that, much less have the time and the energy. So I just wanted to sort of confirm that the county has experts that come in and perform the contact tracing. Of course, asking questions of us, they have to gather information, but it's not up to us to do the contact tracing ourselves.
Actually, we do a fair amount of it. So I'll give you an example. So Alexis is our point person, and I can have her follow up with you. But she is our point person. Each school site, the principal or an administrator is their point person. If one of them should be absent, that either myself or Alexis would step in on that, should we find a positive case. And so when there is a positive case reported, Alexis moves through a very steady list of steps to take. One of them would be contacting the County Office of Health, and they direct us in terms of the work. But it really is, when were you on campus? Where were you on campus? Was there anyone else in the room? Did everyone have on their mask? How long were they in the room? That kind of thing. I'll actually let Alexis turn off her microphone and share the other information.
So we receive a lot of information. So when we are told that there is a positive case of COVID, I reach out to the person immediately. I also reach out to those who have been in close contact to somebody who has tested positive for COVID. The questions look a little bit different for each, whether you have tested positive or if you're a close contact. But the information we receive for those that have tested positive, they're pretty in-depth questions. And once I know that they have been in contact with certain people, I do follow up with those that have been in close contact with the person who's tested positive. Okay.
But you're supplied with a protocol.
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Well, that's good to know. Thank you. This clarifies sort of the thing, because I knew that there's a point person. I mean, there's bullets for this, but then it sort of says the point person will, it does say they collect data from all schools and must complete, but I was sort of assuming that there would be a county person to kind of hold your hand, because obviously this stuff can snowball, right? Correct. I mean, it could be, it's not just talking to one or two people. It could be talking to a lot of people. So, okay.
Yes, it can be.
Okay. So my other question was that sort of came into mind was on the sample schedule. And it would seem to me that we're kind of in this for the semi-long term right now. I mean, we've already gone through roughly half a year, last spring. And I'm a little concerned with some of the volunteer instruction that the K through 2 kids were getting and are not getting anymore. And they were largely being provided, at least at Cabrillo, I know, through volunteers. And I'm just wondering if there's any way to bring that back at all. So I'm talking about art or music or even drama. I guess drama was more of a spindrift type thing. But I guess I'm just wondering, it seems like some of these, what I would consider elective studies, what we'd call electives for, older kids, the K through 2 kids may not be getting, and I'm not sure if it's because we can't fit into their schedule or it's too difficult to coordinate through a distance environment. But I'm just wondering if there's been any thought about that, because, we all know that Mr. Umbehagen, for instance, is providing excellent music classes to our 3rd grade and up. But the K through 2 are not getting that stuff that they've traditionally got. and also art classes and just these like I said, sort of VAPA creative arts type things. So
we can certainly talk to the principals about what their plans are around doing that. I think typically in the K2 that was a school-based program, sometimes paid for with SIPSA funds or paid for with PTO funds. And I couldn't tell you what that happens to look like in the K2 region. My example is Mr. Unbehagen.
Yeah. Okay. So just one last sort of follow-up question there. Where does Pacifica School Volunteers fit into this hybrid learning and distance learning? Because they're a great resource, and I would love to have us connect with Patrick Sayers and see what's going on, whether there are volunteers on the wings who would like to provide, for instance, even tutoring services or something like that, right? Or the read alouds or whatever. So is there anything like that that's discussed?
Oh, look, there's Laverne's kitty. Laverne just got bonus points for having the kitty on the meeting. Again, I don't know the details of this. I do know that Didi O'Gorman and both Patrick Sayers have volunteers that are available, and I think that they're using them both for tutoring, and I know that at IBL they were also talking about a tutoring program. So I can get you details. I don't know any off the top of my head. Julie seems to be nodding her head.
Yeah, I would just mention just how supportive they have been in my interactions so far in just dealing with certain students that we have concerns around attendance or engagement and just looking for that other layer of outreach. And they've been really supportive through that sort of tutoring model. So I certainly appreciate that work that's going on right now.
Yeah, and I mean, my thought is that could attempt to fill some of the gap before we have any of these sort of learning hubs in place, right? Or a learning hub in place, right? That at least families know that if their kids are struggling and need some extra help, that there's an outlet. It just came to my mind when I went through the sample schedule, and I'm kind of looking at this. Well, you've got 2 days where the kids are really going to be at home, even if they've got 2 days of in-person learning, they've got 2 days a week where they're going to be at home, and that's a perfect time to maybe draw on some of these services, especially if they can be delivered via distance learning. So the last thing that I just want to say, and I think you've already mentioned it, is really that I wanted to confirm or reiterate that the plan right now is to try to get, or the intention is to try to get an approval on the plan on January 12th. But that is not a start date by any means. That is literally a date to approve a plan. And even in that plan, it might not have a specific start date in it. It might just be laying out the criteria for when we would be able to resume in-person learning, right?
Correct.
So I don't want people to be betting on a date, and I want it to be very clear to the public.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And at this point, we aren't going to set a date out there. I think we're going to watch the numbers, and they have to be coming down. If we're in purple, we cannot open unless we filled out a waiver. In red, we're still allowed to open in the same exact way to open a plan. It's just kind of the key components of as the numbers rise is we'd be hard pressed to have both students return and teachers return. And so that's what we're looking at is those numbers coming down. After the plan is approved by the board, it still goes through the county. If it's comprehensive, it will pass relatively quickly, but they go through it with a fine-tooth comb just to make sure all of the components are in there. So that could take another 10 days as well. I don't expect at the end of January that the numbers will be coming down, but again, we don't know.
Okay. So it's getting late. I think that there is one person who would like to speak on this if we're done, and there is one question that was submitted through the Q&A. I'm going to invite both of these people to speak. The first person is Melissa Kieser.
And so if you are there, Melissa, we would be happy to entertain your question. I can see you, Melissa, but oh, there you go. You're unmuted.
All right, she stepped away for a second. I'm her husband, John Geezer. Okay. Our daughter is going to IBL right now. And so my question is about the hybrid versus the continuum. The slides went through kind of fast. And so does this mean if she does the hybrid, it means that she has 2 days at school and then nothing else for the rest of the week? Or is there Zoom for the rest of the week like it's already set up now?
So the question about that is that a hybrid is different than distance learning. So hybrid is the focus on returning to school and the in-person piece. And so the at-home piece would be more asynchronous, like more independent on that end. It would tie into the work that's happening at school. So that's one piece. The other is that in a comprehensive middle school where you have 6 different periods, that level of rotation is not going to happen. Like that level of safety is not going to happen. And so IBL's plan just needs more work, and it's just more challenging than doing in a K-8 environment. So I know Mr. Little has done a great job on his weekly newsletters. He can continue as they're moving through the process of determining how they would do hybrid, is communicating that out to parents.
Okay, because my only concern that has been going on is that we had schools, while they were in class, it would go from like, what was it, like 9 to like about 3 o'clock, except for Wednesdays, which was a shortened day. The classes have shortened because of the Zoom, but they cut off at 12:30 because from my understanding, what I got was that the kids weren't logging back in after lunch. And so it was, to me, I felt it was like letting the prisoners run the prison because kids weren't logging back in. We just decided to stop school at 12:30. Now, it might have been bigger than that, but that was my impression. And so now we have only a couple hours each day. And now we're saying as a hybrid, we're going to cut that even less to now it's 8 hours out of the week. And the kids have to learn on their own during the rest of the week. And I think I'm just not quite happy with that. I think that's a lot asking of the parents, but also the kids, especially at junior high, when we're getting them ready for high school, to say, okay, well, the next 3 days, you're on your own for self-learning.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't an opportunity for back and forth conversations. I did answer your question. Yeah, I did answer your question, but point noted. And we know that the issue that we're going to see across the board is the trade-offs. Do we continue more in distance versus more in person? And so typically this isn't a back and forth kind of question asking piece.
Okay, so that was just a follow-up question then. Can I just follow up question? I won't ask any more questions. Is that what this is going to be? My child's only going to get 8 hours a week, and I am responsible for the rest.
So
I won't ask any more questions. That's my last one.
Well, so I'm not sure if I would characterize it hours a week because asynchronous learning is also considered instructional minutes, right? So I know for my kids, I have 2 boys who are in 3rd and 5th grade, and they do their on class, their synchronous learning, but then during the rest of their day, they've got quite a bit of work that they have to do asynchronously. So I guess what I'm hearing from you is that they're done for the day once they get off, once they're not online anymore. And that's not the way that I would characterize, at least my experience with my 2 younger kids. They generally have a very full day and are doing, school varies, but are doing schoolwork up until 2:30 or 3 o'clock every day, at least. Sometimes they lag and, they're still working on things at 4 o'clock.
Oh no, my daughter has homework. She does do that. I'm not saying school ends. I'm just saying the in person with teachers. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is what I'm expecting. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So we're gonna move on. We have two more, and I want to ask you. It's starting to get late. It's a little bit after 9 o'clock, but I do want to respect the public's right to talk on this stuff. So, Rebecca Derricks, if you would like to speak, please come forth.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so clear on the turnaround time for the approval plan. So it has to go through the PTO board, and once it's gone through the PTO board, then you submit it to the county. And so I'm just curious, you said it could take about 10 days. And I know that once this is approved, it doesn't mean we're starting school, but as a parent, this makes us feel better that it's in motion so that when we're in the red tier, we know it's a possibility. So I'm curious, how long does it take for the PTO to make a decision? And then I don't know if 10 days is the correct answer for the county.
So it gets approved by the Board of Trustees is who it gets approved by. The people in front of us are the ones that approve the plan, and then it goes to the county office, and that's approximately 10 days. So I would imagine by the beginning of February is when we would have an approved plan. And we want all of the pieces of that to be in place so that when the numbers come down and we are ready to return to school, that we can move relatively quickly.
All right, thanks for your question. Okay. I have one more person, and that her name is Paula, and please ask your question quickly, and we will do our best to answer it, and then we're going to move on.
Rachel Merlot's been waiting to talk as well.
But that's on item 10F.
Okay, got it. Okay, I had that wrong.
A quick comment, and I'll try to say it in the form of a question, is one, this has been super helpful. Clearly, you guys are working very hard. You're trying to please many people with different opinions and strong opinions. So I guess my first thing to say is thank you. I see that you're doing a very challenging thing. I guess my question / comment would be, it feels like some of the most valuable information that has been a part of the conversation has come up sort of late in the meeting. And I'm wondering if there's something like kind of an executive summary or a high level outline of what you guys feel like are the most important things you want the community to know. I noticed in the beginning of the meeting, there was lots of, is there a motion and can it be approved? And I see that those are all things that need to happen here. But I'm wondering if there's a way to sort of summarize what you guys feel like are the most important things you want the community to know early on. Because from my experience of just listening over the course of this meeting, is a lot of the most valuable things from my perspective kind of came up late. And I'm wondering if there's a way to get a kind of an executive summary, or, here are the important parts that we want our community to know. Because I had felt like I had to kind of look for those important pieces.
Yep. I mean, typically when we do this presentation, it's one of the first items on the agenda. This is a weird one where we did some of the employee things first. So typically this one is the first or second thing on the agenda. The second piece is I've made a commitment to do more communication with both staff and parents. And so hopefully I can get something out Friday, at some point on Friday, to parents around here, the big level pieces of information. And when it flows more regularly, then people will just be accustomed to seeing that.
Sure. And I don't like to make requests without offering assistance. So if there's, you don't know me. And anyway, if you're looking for volunteers or to help with condensing communications, I'm happy to be of assistance if I can be. Otherwise, thank you for your efforts.
Perfect. What's your last name, Paula?
Wilbourne, Wilbourne. So, and I'm a IBL parent.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm going to move us along now because it's starting to get a little late. We are on item 10E, wellness update. That is Dr. Carrillo.
Okay, thank you. Will, did you want to share the presentation? Thank you. Good evening. It's my pleasure and honor to speak with you tonight about a very relevant and important topic to our community. So we've talked about many important things tonight. I do believe this is quite a critical conversation. Tonight, I plan to update you on the social emotional wellness supports and initiatives that we have had available to our staff and will continue to our students and families during distance learning and as we prepare to return to school, because we've heard tonight that addressing to those needs is most essential. This presentation is timely as our community has been shattered by the news of Patty McNally passing. In preparing for this presentation prior to receiving this news, I had planned to provide you with the background on what restorative practices are and other systems of support, such as the social emotional curriculum, the SEL curriculum that's coming to our staff and students, and how these tools are to be engaged in extreme times of crisis or trauma or embedded as part of our daily routines to build strong classrooms and school communities. Well, this week has been traumatic on many levels, and we have heavily relied on the restorative practices, on our experts and our staff and our own staff, such as those who are on our social emotional team, our district wellness team, and the circle meetings that our students and staff have facilitated to process this exceptionally difficult news, such as losing a teacher, a colleague of many years, a dear friend, and so much more, hard to truly put into words. I want to personally express my gratitude for the staff who have truly been available and worked through their own grief to process and yet still facilitate circles and activities and resources to help our community grieve and move forward, and who are continued to do so. For many, even as I say these words to you out loud tonight, have yet to process truly Patty's passing and will continue to process that in the days and the months to follow. These systems of support are essential in the midst of the most trying days, such as what we've experienced and are continuing to, and in the times to come as we return to school and think about the social and emotional health of our students. I was able to participate in one such circle just today, and it's truly a vehicle for our teams, our staff, our people to come together and process. When we are in separate homes, it's one space where we can come together to breathe, to share stories, and together. Thank you. Well, next slide. So one thing we know is that the mindset of our students and staff and families sure matters a lot. This was critical prior to the pandemic and is increasingly essential to be addressing the social emotional health of our community during the pandemic. These are so important. They've been outlined by our board, part of our LCAP goals, and now in the priorities of our return to school. When students feel even more isolated, given the constraints of distance learning, it's important to equip our teachers and staff with support and resources to help identify students who are most at risk and also meet the universal needs of all learners. So you can see illustrated on this slide that this is a common model which illustrates how there's various targeted areas of supports applied to all students, from universal platforms where we're trying to engage all students with something such as a curriculum, to more targeted groups of students that are either selected teams or high-risk students. So I'm going to speak a little bit more about those as we go through. Next slide. So what's really being done? What's happening right now on our campuses? Well, I want to just speak a little bit to three different items. First of all, the restorative practices, and I'm going to give you a real specific example of what that is in slides to follow. But this is a way in which, as I mentioned, teachers and are able to really strengthen communities, but also begin this real intentional work around how we can reframe questions and to help students with challenging behaviors. This work began 4 years ago. There's quite a bit of professional learning that has begun, and it makes a lot of sense for that to continue to work in that direction. We have had the opportunity for staff to engage in these wellness circles held bi-monthly that are really facilitated by our experts, such as Natalie, who's getting her master's in this program, and as Laverne mentioned earlier in the meeting tonight. And so it's really true that we have quite a few current staff that are experts that can help us learn and lead. We're also looking to provide more information to parents in the months to come through things such as our town hall meeting. Furthermore, we are very excited that we're the recipients of part of a grant that is coming to us and several of our other county partners, where we will be receiving the Caring School Community Curriculum. This training will be coming starting next month, and for our principals, and then going to our school staff. And it's really been, it's a K-8 program designed to meet the needs of students who are, whether they're learning in a distance learning format or in person when we return to school. And again, I mentioned there are supports in place for tiers 2 and 3. So those are those select students who may receive intensive one-on-one support and who may not be able to or are responding to the tiers in the universal application. So I just want to share with you some research around restorative practice, but I also just want you to have a kind of an understanding of what this is and what this looks like. Truly, it's a way in which you can frame questions to students. And, you know, it's something that I relied on quite a bit as a principal when trying to address some kind of situation that happened where perhaps there was mistreatment from one child to another. And it might begin with, if you were to respond to somebody with challenging behavior, something such as what happened, what were you thinking at the time, what have you thought about since, who has been affected by what you have done, in what way, and what do you think do you need to do to make things right? So as you see on the screen, the research certainly supports that it's a way to really better engage our students and our families into these practices. And what are the restorative practices? Well, it's really a shift from some more traditional discipline where we are truly trying to build empathy and give the victim a voice. So as I mentioned, the questions I just described, it may include talking to those that were harmed by action. So it may take a moment to discuss with a student by asking them, what did you think when you realized what had happened? What impact has this incident had on you and others? What has been the hardest thing for you? And very important question is just, what do you think needs to happen to make things right? Again, it's a very intentional shift, and that it's restorative practices are that social science that studies have shown how to build social capital and achieve social discipline through participatory learning and decision-making. So while we've been utilizing our training and how we will continue to do so, it's a direction that makes a tremendous amount of sense. It works very nicely with the other resource that we are going to be receiving, which is the social emotional learning curriculum called Caring School Community. It's a comprehensive research-based curriculum that really builds on school-wide community and develops students' social skills and their competencies, enabling a transformative stance on discipline. So it really teaches very specific skills related to that and provides teachers with those resources to really help them through very direct teaching around responsibility, empathy, and cooperation, and creating settings where students feel heard, known, and cared for. Students become intrinsically motivated to contribute productively to a community where they feel invested in and where they know they matter. So it's really providing our staff with those specific pieces, but also the ability to respond to certain events. Again, it's a great way to really pair that nicely with restorative practices. At this time, I'd like to be able to answer any of your questions or any comments you may have.
Thanks so much. Oh yeah, please, Trustee.
I'm not exactly sure how to phrase this. but since children of color are usually targeted for discipline more in every school system, how does the restorative practice compensate for that general, disproportionate discipline? Like, what's in this that helps children of color who may have been targeted, more harshly for discipline? How does that help them in this wellness kind of practice?
Well, one thing I do know that the value of a circle is that it's completely inclusive of everybody involved. So, for instance, it's not just one person and another. It's really everybody else who has witnessed what has happened. And so it's really important to address that behavior as well. And so I don't know if this particularly speaks to the example you're describing, but it's important to understand that children really need help understanding what they witness, in addition to just if they were directly involved or close to an event that may have happened. For instance, when something may occur in a playground, there's a lot of people that may be impacted by that, even if they're not directly that person. And so it's an opportunity for that teacher to really build that voice for students, but also provide a platform for people to describe their feelings and process that.
So I had a quick follow-up on that. So an example of one of the, and I'm going to call it, quote, tools that have been used to enforce discipline and to enforce it disproportionately on our most marginalized children has been suspensions, right? So I think restorative practices, the thought is that it is a very good substitute, or it would be a better tool to get through difficult confrontations with kids. But I guess on the Caring Schools community, which is the second socio-emotional development that we have going on here, I'm wondering if there is any evidence of how effective that is at improving suspension rates. Right, because the thing is, I looked at some of the studies in San Francisco Unified, which were from like 2004-05 on achievement, and they were really impressive. Right, Caring Schools communities showed that it improved achievement of students, but proficiency rates is one thing. I'm talking about the discipline category and suspensions is sort of a prime example where we want to avoid suspension rates overall, but also this disproportionate use of suspensions on kids of color. So do we know anything about that, Dr. Carrillo?
I'd be happy to follow up with you with more specifics on that, particularly just, and you're speaking about the curriculum in particular or restorative practices?
Well, I think I have a good idea of the restorative is thought, but I was speaking about the Caring School communities in particular to see if that also is thought to have a similar, building social emotional IQ amongst our students, right? Reduce incidences that would otherwise lead to suspensions. And it's two ways. It's not just on the kid side. It's also on how teachers react to these incidents, right? As well, I think the teachers learn just as much as the kids in this program. At least I would hope. So that's my hope.
I think it's really valuable for all involved. I know for me as a teacher, that was always a really valuable moment to have a time to kind of pause, reflect, come together to really hear student voices that you may not always hear, and that there are other ways that people can also communicate too, right? That in some they may not feel that comfort in sharing in a circle, but they do, where they may not have another voice to share. So it's really about building that culture and being very intentional about that.
Okay, but that's on the restorative practices side.
Correct, and actually with sorry, the caring.
If you could just illuminate me, I don't know too much about the Caring School communities.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. I do know one part about why it was such a good fit for our district is that it's really designed for, it's a K-8 program, and other SEL curriculums are either more elementary or more geared towards older students. So the middle school piece, in addition, really is more robust. So it has a more, it is more, it's not just an add-on to the elementary, which is sometimes the case with curriculums. So it is truly there, and it does provide teachers and principals with the same exact, a similar level of resources that it does for the students.
Great, thank you. My fellow trustees, any other questions or comments for Dr. Carrillo? Okay, I'm going to move us on then. Thank you so much for your presentation. So next we have item G, Lindemar Educational Center, fire alarm upgrades, bid results. Ms. Peterson.
Jesse?
Thank you, Trustee Levin.
Yeah, I think we have.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Trustee Villalobos, did I miss you?
You skipped over the F, 10F.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. It's at the top of my page. Yes, 10F. So this is also Dr. Carrillo. Thank you so much for pointing that out. And no, we do have 2 public comments on this as well. So
Thank
we'll
you.
get to those.
Yes, it's still me. Sorry, different presentation, but still me. Will, would you mind sharing the screen again? All right, thank you. And thank you again for allowing me to address this topic with you tonight. As the current director of special education and as a former school principal and teacher, I've seen firsthand the implications of a national crisis, which is impacting some of our most at-risk students. This was occurring before the pandemic and certainly continues to impact our schools across the state and nation. The crisis is that we do not have enough special education teachers. The crisis is that the country does not have enough special education teachers. This truly is a crisis, and we are being hit hard, right, by the special education teacher shortage right here in Pacifica. I know that this is not the first you are hearing this news. However, it bears such importance that it's necessary to remind everyone of the root cause of how we find the need to contract with agencies to provide appropriate staffing for students who need teachers that can provide their specialized education and related services. Tonight, I will share with you how the crisis of this teacher shortage is really impacting us, and particularly in communities such as Pacifica, where the cost of living is so high. And as you will remember last year, we had a number of special ed teacher openings and students were not receiving their services. So as the chart that you see, I want to just refer to some of the facts which I believe address some of the questions that were asked. So our district is currently does not have an occupational therapist. We contract with 2 to provide services. The average cost of the 2 contractors is $112,880. We contract with 1 physical therapist for $41,706. We did include the number of district employees and contractors in the October 7th report on certificated assignments. We have 3 psychologists and 1 contractor. We have 3 RSP teachers and 4.8 contractors. The certificated report said that there were 8 district SDC employees. For the purpose of this report, we excluded an SDC teacher with an intern credential. So there are 7 teachers and 1 intern and 3 contractors. We have 1 district speech therapist and 4.4 speech and language pathologists. We are on track to spend about $2.25 million in contractors and $1.43 million on teachers. Last year, we spent $1.2 million on contractors. This chart shows the average total cost of our teachers and the average total cost of contractors based on the current school year. The total cost for an employee includes the salary, all benefits, and other costs, which include contribution to CalSTRS. For a contractor, it is 1 cost to us. I also want to refer to you the information on the screen from the School Services of California. The national data show higher attrition rates for teachers in special education than for those in other areas. While it is not possible to calculate turnover rates for California special educators in traditional schools from the California Department of Education data file available to us, we calculated turnover for teachers working in special education schools between the 2015-16 and the 2016-17 school years. 13% of teachers in special education schools left the profession or state, and 7% moved between schools within California. Combined, more than 1 in 5 teachers in special education schools left their position more than any other subject. And in the next slide, this data refers to a significant upswing in the number of interim credentials over the last 5 years. We are, the last slide, please, Will. We are interested in working to develop solutions to the special education teacher and specialist shortage. Some districts provide a stipend to their special education teachers through the negotiations process. We're also looking to support current employees who are interested in becoming a special educator. One way that we're trying to grow our own teaching force is through Alder University. This spring, we are looking for 1 employee who would join the program and be a mentor while working alongside one of our current teachers and attend their graduate class to earn their credential. The district would pay $10,000 towards this process. At this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions and for discussion.
So I had a question. Do we know what percentage markup the contracting companies charge? When you go through a contracting agency, the agency is going to charge a fee. Is it 20%, 30%? Or do we have any idea what that percentage is
So we have one cost that we pay the agency in terms of what is determined beyond that cost that we don't know.
Okay, so you're not privy to what I guess I kind of just I pulled a Jesse and just ran through the numbers and figured out the difference, we got 39% difference in the first category, 48 in the second, 25 in the third, and a -6 in the final one. I guess what I'm wondering is if the contracting agencies are doing an upcharge of 35%, then we could at some point, later on think about if we raise that step column for psychologists and whatnot by 5%, are we making up the difference? So I guess what I'm just wondering is what's the overhead we're actually charging so that at some point we can level out in the middle. I know that's not a today issue and money's a problem, but I'm just trying to figure out for the future.
Right. I think one thing to keep in mind is that it's not necessarily the contractor obviously is making money on that, right? But the challenge around comparing each contract is that we contract with a number of agencies, typically who's available when we need them, and they don't have the same contracting structures. So it's almost a different price per contractor, per agency. But you're absolutely right. Like, we would be well served to think about how to be able to compensate employees in a way so that we weren't paying it to an outside agency. Right? That's your thinking?
Yeah. Yes, because we're obviously paying an upcharge to this other company. So how do we get rid of that upcharge?
Well, yeah, and so Trustee Burkini, I love the way you're thinking about this, because the idea is that if we could find a middle ground where it would be a win-win situation, where we could both get savings from not having to hire a contractor, but also afford something like a stipend for our permanent here, right? And so at the same time, we could be more competitive about possibly attracting and retaining other permanent staff, right? So, but I'm not sure. yeah, I'm not sure if we get the information on how much the contractors make. I think we have to do is kind of just really look at what the cost savings would be to us if we were able to just run some simulations about what if we provided a stipend of X amount, then how much could we increase and how much would we be saving based on what we're paying out to the contractors right now, or what we're paying out to the contracting agencies, right? I don't know if we'd ever know what the contractors are getting themselves, right? That's kind of very private information, how much an individual makes, right?
I guess I feel
so I think that's.
If we dug enough, we could probably figure out. We could probably figure out what the agencies are charging. Nose and needle around.
Maybe, or we could get kind of an average rate for what agencies. I'm sure we could figure out what the average going rate, the markup. Trustee Villalobos.
Oh, so,
and you just muted. There you go.
So for me, Julie, thank you for putting this together. But for me, this isn't enough information, because Linda did have a good point that I didn't even think of before, which is like for the psychologist, for example, the 153,225, is that just what we're paying them and not the agency? So is the agency, like, for instance, getting 30,000 for giving us that employee, or what is their fee? So we need to know the real numbers of what that is. And it's also missing the occupational therapists, the physical therapists, and I think that's it. But I think just looking at the real numbers, and then also if we want to break down, for example, the RSP teacher, 79,285. We know they don't make that because on our steps, that might be as high as it goes. So, is that paying them 53,000 and then, the remainder is going towards benefits? So we need to see more information and more of a breakdown. And then I also have a question of why we're on track to do $2.25 million in contractors' fees this year. And last year it was 1.2. So I'm just wondering what's changed to make it almost double.
So last year we didn't hire, remember we had those positions open for so many years, for so many weeks and months. What we're not talking about were the cost of the compensatory ed awards that we offered. So that's one piece, but the cost of the contractors is that last year we didn't go out as early with the contractors. It is one of the reasons why our positions were filled this year, is that we started to look for contractors this summer. So the first thing that we do is we post our positions and we interview any qualified candidates. And not a lot of people apply for our jobs. Just like Dr. Carrillo said, is that there are so few teachers that are applying for those jobs, and that when we do interview someone and offer them the position, they have their choice of anywhere in San Mateo County. So we just went earlier for contractors, and so we have full year contracts instead of, finally getting someone in January.
Thank you.
So I think one of the things that's uncomfortable about talking about this is we have 3 RSP teachers, and in no way do we want to talk about their specific financial information here. And so when we talk about averages, that's the reason why we average them, is so that we didn't have any identifying information for our own employees. The cost of the contractor, that's the total package that we pay. We don't pay in addition to that. So $118,000 for the RSP teacher is what we pay for that contracted position. You are correct that our teachers receive less in their salary, but what it costs us as a district is that average of almost $79,000.
I think I'm going to just push back a little about the RSP teachers. Just for example, since you brought that up, is anybody can find out what anybody makes on Transparent California. And I just ran through 2018 to see what our school district teachers were making, and I saw different numbers. And so I know they don't have 2019 up, but I just want to say that, you know, the confidentiality, yes, we want to keep that confidential, but anybody can find out what superintendent makes, or Julie, or Will, or me, anybody. And so I think we just want to be as transparent as possible when we're talking about the budget and the money. And also, I just feel like since we've brought on a new position into the district, the HR position, I feel like we really need to challenge how we're getting and how we're recruiting these, and if we're actually going the extra mile and really working to recruit these people. So I know that we are, you know, a lower paying district, and I can understand. I think, Jesse, you mentioned last meeting, why don't we try to recruit them? They're not going to recruit because look at how much money they're making, you know, and so that would be like a double step back for them. So I just think there's a way that we need to reform this or work harder to try to hire people, because we have 3 RSP teachers and 4.8 contractors. And so we have more contractors for RSP teachers and SDC teachers. We have 8 of them that are district employees and 3 contractors. And in the speech and language, it's just 1 district employee and 4.4 that we're contracting out. And so, I mean, I think this needs some kind of reform. Maybe we need to have a deeper conversation about it. And, you know, maybe there's another district out there who's having this challenge, and maybe they've been successful in recruiting special ed employees somehow, you know, like with a stipend or, you know, what have you. But I think just saying, oh, well, this is the way it is, I don't think that's good enough. I think we need to do a deeper dive into it.
So Laverne, I Trustee Villalobos, I agree with you, but I'm not hearing the same message that this is just what it is. I think that Dr. Carrillo was very clear in the conclusion of her presentation that we could look into stipends. So I think that's I see that personally as the solution is trying to get the pay to a more competitive rate. Now, how do that? Well, one way to do that is to, if you will, trade in our contractors for permanent teachers. So that's where I think Linda, you know, had the idea. Listen, if we could find that point, some point in the middle of these the numbers in the right-hand column and the left-hand column, then we could take that point and redirect those dollars into stipends, and we'd have a better chance of recruiting and retaining. And I also really like the idea of growing our own. So the whole partnering with Alder is, you know, I would love to see that grow and take existing staff and transform them into special education instructors or specialists. So. This is a hugely difficult situation, and it's those numbers that we see there are directly a problem with the labor market. There is just a shortage of these types of staff everywhere, and so it's very difficult. Not I think Julie mentioned this, or Dr. Carrillo mentioned this. It's not only a statewide phenomenon; it is a nationwide phenomenon.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. That is true. It is definitely something that is happening everywhere, and again, this high cost of living is really difficult when you throw that layer onto it as well.
So are there any other questions on this or comments before we move on?
I think there's some public comment.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, of course, sorry. I'm gonna do it in order. So I think Janelle was the first person who wanted to speak on this, and then Rachel, you'll go right after her, okay?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Janelle Jones. I'm a parent at IBL, and I'm also recently hired into the special ed as a paraprofessional, and I've been subbing as a paraprofessional for 2 years now. I think it's very apparent the toll that contractors, a revolving door of contractors can take on our students within special ed. I think that's pretty apparent to everyone. But I want to talk a little bit about the toll that it can take on our paraprofessionals. Many of these contractors have little or no tie to our community. They are not invested in our students and in our schools. And it can become a burden to our paraprofessionals. They are relied on to be the source of information because they've been working with students sometimes for several years prior to a contractor coming in. So they have to provide continuity. They are familiar sometimes with the students' families. They are obviously familiar with the school that they work within, and they have to provide a lot of information and guidance to a contractor. The starting salary for a paraprofessional is just slightly under $15 an hour, which means it's comparable to a new employee at McDonald's. I want everybody to think about that for a minute. So these are the people that are working with our most vulnerable students, and they're making the same amount of money as the people at McDonald's. Okay? Just tonight in 10B, we had 6 paraprofessionals move from hiring status to permanent status. So these are 6 people who have committed to our city and our Pacifica School District to work with special ed kids. This is amazing. They know that they can make more as a paraprofessional driving over the hill. They know that, but they are committed to our town and our schools and our students. So what I would propose is looking at who we have working in our school district now and working with them to further their career in special ed and perhaps pursue a teaching credential and what's holding them back from that. I actually have a friend who was a paraprofessional and a very gifted one within our district. She received a grant from the county to pursue a teaching credential. She did not pursue a teaching credential in special ed. You have to ask yourself why that is. I really commend the board for asking these tough questions over and over again about contractors, because it's an important thing that we need to be talking about in our town and in the Pacifica School District. It's important. And this is our most vulnerable, some of our most vulnerable students. So we need to make sure that this is handled in a better way than a revolving door of contractors who, aren't interested in staying here with us under any circumstances. In the past, I've worked with contractors as a sub, and one of them told me, kind of how boring our town is. And it just kind of shows you that, we are not taking advantage of our competitive advantage. People love Pacifica. the 6 people who signed on that moved to permanent status, they love working in this town and for this district. So why is that not translating to people moving forward into a teaching role? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So next, Rachel, I know you've been waiting a long time. You are up.
Hi, thank you. Sorry. I just wanted just a few comments. I'm Rachel Merlot from, I'm speaking from Ingrid B. Lacey Middle School. Just when I was looking at the slides prior to the presentation, a couple things came up. It was presented as if the RSP and SDC, each of the categories are also on different salary schedules. I think it's important that we also realize that both the RSP, SDC are in the same teacher salary schedules as all of us. And those numbers actually even reflected kind of high, it seemed, and looking at hiring. And so I might argue that maybe even the discrepancy is a little bit larger. If you're looking at, you know, even a 5th year teacher that we would hire in, it would be a larger discrepancy between that. Being at IBL now for over a decade, I think I'm counting at least 8 or 9 different RSP and SDC teachers that have come through, and seeing the challenge that that's posed for a variety of reasons. During that same time, there have been many different proposals of things that could be done in those specific teaching areas. And it feels that we're here again when a lot of things, you know, prior to people that are here now even, and we continue to bring up the same concern, the same ideas that are being brought now, and still not getting a lot of result from that. So I do hope that maybe we can also get some, or that there's a little more information presented that is a little bit more clear, and maybe even some past proposals of ideas that have already been discussed. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So if there are no further or discussion from the board, I'm going to move us on to item, which is item 10G, Lindemar Educational Center fire alarm upgrades bid results. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Levin. The district solicited bids for the Lindemar Educational Center fire alarm upgrades project. The project includes demolishing existing fire alarms for the B, C, and D wings. Work also includes hazardous materials abatement related to the alarm system. We are asking the Board of Trustees to authorize staff to enter into contract with the lowest responsible bidder. Based on the bid results, the district is planning to enter into contract with Roden Bidders, Inc. for the amount of $617,540. I'm happy to answer any questions or comments, have discussion.
I have just one question for you. For 3 bidders, Rodan, CF, and Dan, and the third was by far and above much higher, a much higher quote than the other 2. I just want to make sure the difference between Rodan and CF is less than 1% difference in their bid. So I almost see that as an insignificant difference, and I want to just make sure that CF isn't offering us something that's qualitatively better than Rodan that would be worth that little bit extra before committing just to the lowest bid. Now, if it's the exact same job and there's no discernible difference between what the 2 are offering, then I'm for it. But if CF is willing to offer us something that is higher quality, then, you know, the difference in cost is rather negligible. So I just wanted to know, you know, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Our project manager wrote really very tight bid specs when the bid was announced and publicized. So the specs are pretty tight, and she had also reviewed the bids thoroughly and all the documentation. And because we could, this is the lowest bidder because it was out to public bid, but she did feel like she had a strong bid with Roden Builders, Inc.
Okay.
And if should something fall through with the paperwork, we are prepared to go to the second lowest bidder. But right now she has all of her paperwork in order and she's reviewed everything and she feels very comfortable with this bidder.
Okay, thanks so much. It's funny that third bidder really just kind of blew themselves out of the water because it was, 23% more. So, okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on these bids? No? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Oh, sorry.
I mean, this is all coming out of the bond money, right? All the funding? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, anything else or are we ready for a motion? I will take your silence as we are ready for a motion. So do I have a motion to approve the Lindemar Educational Center fire alarm? It results in I am going motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Aldis, will you please take the vote?
Trustee Bradall?
Yes.
Trustee Burkini?
Yes.
Trustee Doggett?
Yes.
Trustee Levin?
Yes.
Trustee Villalobos?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to item 10H, certification of the first interim report for 2020-21. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Lucy is going to bring up the presentation. So you can go ahead and move forward. Some of these slides are quite detailed and some of them I won't go through, like this is just the content. So you can go ahead and move forward, Will. So the objective of the first interim is it reflects the actuals through October 31st, and we're projecting the financial activity through June 30th. The first interim does contain a very detailed budget, which is attached, and multi-year projections. So the state COLA, I know that, Jerry mentioned this in her public comment earlier. The state COLA for education for the final state budget is 0%. When we adopted the budget in May, we thought it was a -1%. So it's extremely difficult for school districts that are relying on state funding to place a COLA on employee compensation when there is really in this fiscal year and projecting out next year and the following year, no COLA. And the district does have these ongoing costs of employee compensations, which you'll see in the details of the budget. We pay up increases in health and welfare benefit costs and increases in pension costs and increases in employee step and column. So it's a little misleading to look at a COLA and think that it can be applied to salary because there's so many other costs, as you'll see in the budget, that go into the budget, and that right now we have a 0% COLA. The one thing that I heard today from the Legislative Analyst's Office is they're analyzing the 21-22 budget, and they're seeing that there's going to be more funding for school districts. So we don't have a lot of details on that now, but they're recommending that it be put towards distance learning and some one-time funds, and perhaps helping us out with some deferrals, which we'll go into now. So if you can go ahead and move forward, Will. So we do know that Pacifica School District is local control funding. We call that the LCFF funding. And that's because our funding is based on our attendance, how many students come to school, and the funding that is given from the state per student. We also receive some additional funding for our class size in kindergarten through actually TK through third grade, and our unduplicated or supplemental funded students. So for this school year, because of COVID-19, we are held harmless to attendance. So we're using last year's funding level for attendance. But as we've had a lot of discussion on, there's some state requirements placed on us, and we still need to meet those daily minimum instructional requirements and complete that weekly engagement record. So this is new that we have not had time to talk to you about since we last met and talked about budget. So I wanted to outline all of the new funding that we did receive. It's called CARES Act funding, and one of the categories was school emergency relief. This is federal funding that was given to us for $82,000. And we already received these funds, and these funds are fully spent. And you can see in the bullets how we spent the funds. It was $29,000 on compensation, $7,000 on distance learning, PD and support, and safety and personal protective equipment, which we'll call PPE going forward, $45,000, and then a small amount to child nutrition. The other category that we did receive the funding for is called Coronavirus Learning Relief Governor's Emergency Relief Fund, GEARS, and that can be used from March through June 2021. This is specifically to mitigate learning loss for special education students, and we have not yet started spending those funds. So go ahead, Will, to the next slide. Another part of the CARES Act funding, the largest piece of the CARES Act funding, again, federal funding, is the Coronavirus Learning Loss Relief Funds, $1 million. This one has a lot of guidelines and has to be spent by December 31st, which we are pretty far along on spending the full amount. And the categories we're spending that on is certificated compensation, $200,000. Full-time distance learning teachers, because we did add some full-time distance learning teachers. We have some smaller class sizes, which increased our FTE. So that's $250,000. And then again, distance learning PD and support, $75,000, technology, $200,000, and safety and PPE, $50,000. And then an item that we continue to talk about is child nutrition, $300,000, and that doesn't cover our loss in the child nutrition fund, which I'll go over a little more details on that as well. So the last category of learning loss mitigation funds is state funds, and we have not yet spent those funds, but we have definite plans for spending the $221,000. Classified compensation would go into hiring additional custodians, PPE, and cleaning, and then support for distance learning. And I was going to talk about Prop 15. I know there was a request for that, but that didn't pass. So you can go ahead and move on, Will. So the biggest concern that we're facing right now is the state deferrals. We didn't have this when we adopted the budget, but it came out in the final state budget. And the state is actually deferring $12 billion to school districts. And I listed the amounts and the months. It's just crazy that there's a payment due in February, but you're not going to receive it until November. So down below it, I just summarized what that means for Pacifica School District. If you were to look at the reports in the attachments, you'll see the cash flows and you'll see the actual months that we go negative in cash. But it begins February 2021. So 36% of the money that the state pays Pacifica School District will not be paid in this fiscal year. It means we have to borrow those funds because we will have a negative cash on June 30th if we don't enter into a borrowing, which is called a TRAN, to cover the $7.3 million deficit that we're going to face this year. So you guys have seen this before. It's a summary of our revenues, and it just shows you that the big blue category is state funding. 82% of our district's funds come from the state in the form of LCFF funds, and now we're not going to receive 36% or $7.3 million of those funds for this fiscal year. You can move forward, Will. And then going into the expenditures, we wanted to show you a breakdown of how the funds are being spent. And you can see certificated salaries is 31%, classified 11%, and then administrators is 6%, and employee benefits 28%. And I did get a question on that. The question is, out of employee benefits, how much of that is certificated, classified, and administrators? So I broke that down. And so certificated is 18%, classified 9%, and management 1%. So this chart is a little different than what we had last because the employee compensation went down to 77% versus 83%. And it's really due to what we've been talking about, contracted services and COVID expenditures. That changed the percentages. This is a chart that shows you what we had in our adopted budget and then what the difference was now at first interim. And there's a lot of details that go into this, but I think I'll go through a couple of them. You can see the first column is the adopted budget, the second column, first interim, and then the variance on the far right. And so if you look on the variances and you want to know what happened to revenues, you can see a change of 217,000. And then there's an A, and then I'll just read it to you, but on the next page, there's an explanation. And so I showed you how the COLA, we had budgeted a minus 1%. The COLA was 0%, so that increased our revenues by 217,000. And then on the restricted side, you see a lot of increases in federal and state revenue. That's all the COVID funding that we just showed you on the previous charts. And then if you go down to like certificated salaries, letter D, our FTE is higher. So we increased the cost of certificated salaries by the 227.18. It comes up to almost 250,000. So that's kind of how you read through this. Another area that I'll point out to you is transfers out. And that was our contribution to the Child Nutrition Fund. We had thought that it would be originally 100,000 before, COVID, then it became 300,000. We're looking at over $500,000 of a contribution to the Child Nutrition Fund now, this fiscal year. And that is even with the state reimbursing us because our meal counts are just very low. We've been sharing out the meal counts with you, and we're not preparing as much food, and we are still maintaining the same level of staffing costs that we had before. So that's how you read this. The next page is the descriptions that I kind of just read out to you. So what I'll keep doing is continue going on because I know the time is late, and then you can stop me, or we can go back and go back to the slides to answer any questions that you might have. So this next slide is, we do this every time, it's the multi-year summary. We have to reflect the first fiscal year that we're currently in and then project 2 years out. So this is the information we have at this time. If you can go down just a little bit further, Will, you can see when you look at our revenues, mine is our expenditures and where our reserve percentage is, we are we're projecting this fiscal year to be just under 4%. The goal for the board was to be about 4% and to inch up to 6%. In the second year, we do not meet our 3% reserve. We're only at 1.27%. And then in the third year, we actually go negative. So what we're presenting to you tonight is a qualified report. We did say this in the adopted budget that we were preparing a qualified report. And we have talked a lot about this. We're working with the county. We're under county oversight right now, so we can try to remedy this and balance the budget out in the third year. And in addition to that, the board's goal is to have a higher reserve so that we can weather these cash flow shortages and unanticipated expenditures that come up. So you can go ahead, Will. Get to the next one. So you've seen this chart before as well. We really, Pacifica School District's reserves are just far too low. The elementary average, this is outdated, but it was over 20% in 17-18. For Pacifica, it's recommended that we have 17% or 2 months worth of payroll. For Pacifica, 2 months worth of payroll is $5 million. And our current reserve is only 3.8%. So we're not in a good place right now as far as reserves. And then you can continue on, Will. This is the same information. Why do we need reserves? Summary of all funds. Wanted you to have a snapshot of all the funds that we oversee. And the general fund is the details you have. Fund 13 reflects the loss. You can see that there's a transfer in from the general fund. So Fund 13, I actually misspoke earlier. I said 500,000. It was a $500,000 increase in the loss. We projected 100,000 and we're at 600,000. How we're covering this right now is we're using 300,000 of the COVID funds, and then we're contributing $300,000 from the general fund. And that's how we're currently covering the child nutrition loss. Will's kind of pointing out the numbers there. And then you can see the detail of the other funds as well. that I think we can go ahead and move forward. So again, we're going to file a qualified first interim report. And what that means is the district meets its financial obligations for the current fiscal year and may not meet obligations in the subsequent 2 years. So let's go forward. So county oversight, we're working very closely with the county. They're reviewing our reports. We're gonna have a meeting to talk about status of budget reductions and just continue to review our certification status. So the next steps, we're gonna look very closely at our staffing and our enrollment for 21-22 in January and February. We're also gonna maybe have a better picture of the state budget for those 2 years out. If there is, the legislative analyst said there should be more funding. Again, it's going to be one-time funding. It's not something that's going to help us in the long run. We need to see some COLAs put on, some additional LCFF funding. But it's hopeful that what I'm presenting to you tonight is the worst case scenario and that things could improve with the governor's January proposal. So once we have that information, staffing, enrollment, the governor's January proposal, we would hope to take some actions on budget reductions in February before we come back in March and present to you the second interim budget report. And then the process next year, I think we'll go back to doing an LCAP and a budget, and then the adoption of the LCAP and budget in June. Those are two things we didn't do together this year. So that's for the budget. I'm going to go through other considerations, and then I'll let you guys have time to stop and talk about where you might have had questions in the prior slides. So I always want to give you a snapshot of parcel tax. We're still very grateful to the community for the parcel tax. It's about almost $1.3 million. When you look at revenues for this year, we have a carryover balance from last year. And then what we project for this year, it's about $1.4 million. It supports 6 teacher positions, the teacher support program, the counseling program, library media technicians at all of the school sites. And then the outdoor education was postponed this year, but we're keeping, and when I have a typo there, reserve is spelled wrong, but we're keeping the reserve for outdoor education so that the hope is that we can send 2 grade levels, 5th and 6th grade, to outdoor education next year. So the money's set aside in parcel tax funds, and then you can see there's a balance of about $125,000 when we end this fiscal year. So you can go ahead to the next slide. Just kind of an update on workforce housing. We hope to bring a formal update to the board and the Workforce Housing Committee soon, but we have submitted our application to the city planning. And right now, we did receive a letter of questions. We've gone through questions and answers with them, and we're in a waiting period right now for them to answer our last formal submittal, which was formal answers to the questions that they had in the permit application. So, you know, it's a $25 million project. We're looking at financing it with, right now, the Heart loan and some of the Fairmont funds. In the construction phase, we would like to issue the COPs. One of the things we need to look at is to have a stronger credit rating and stronger general fund reserves when we do get to the point of issuing COPs. The good news is that once we can complete this project, the loan would be paid off and we would have rental income from the tenants, which would eventually feed back into as a positive cash flow for the district. I think there's one last thing, or let's see. That's it. I know I went really fast, but I saw that it was getting late. So I would like to open it up for questions, comments, and direction.
Trustee Brocchini looks like she really wants to ask you a question.
Really? Yeah. I just, I was trying to search through my paperwork from Master's of Governance class. Can you remind me what the 3 levels of qualification or status that we could be rated on our budget. So we've got qualified, but I can't remember what the other two were.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So positive is the first status, and that's you're positive for the first year and 2 years out. Qualified is the current status that I'm recommending the board approve tonight, where you can meet your obligations for the current fiscal year, but may not meet your obligations in the 2 subsequent years. And then negative is when the current fiscal year, you go into a negative status.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions from my colleagues?
I have a question.
Okay. Yes, please.
If we go to the county oversight. So I'm just curious if what happens in that third year if we don't bring up our reserves in our general fund. What happens in the third year?
Okay.
If we're looking at the numbers that you have presented.
Okay, that's a very good question. So we're actually in county oversight now. So having the county oversight currently holds us to a higher standard, and the hope is with them kind of holding our hand and going through the process with us, the outlook will not be what I'm presenting to you tonight, because they're going to work with us and we're going to meet with them and they're going to work with us through the process, and they're going to review our budget in a very detailed manner and offer suggestions and comments. And it's their job to help us get out of the qualified status and not be in a negative status in that third year. Does that answer your question, Laverne?
It did a little bit. So I guess there's like a second part to that question. If we go to, I can't find the slide, which one it's on, but you had mentioned when we need to look at budget cuts. Was that in February?
Normally that's a timeline to start looking and take actions, because in order to make any type of significant reductions or staffing reductions, you have a certain deadlines to adhere to. As far as with certificated, it's March 15th, and with classified, it's 60 days. So that's a starting point, is January, February. Hopefully there's some actions that could be taken in that timeline in order for it to impact the next fiscal year. The sooner you make the budget reductions, the easier it is going forward, because it counts for when you make the reduction and then the year after. So I hope that helps. Does that clarify?
It does help a little bit, because it's been a while, like where we really had to look at the budget cuts before. And so I'm just wondering if we need to make, any changes for staffing. That needs to be done before March 15th, right?
For certificated, yes.
For certificated. And so I just want to be prepared and looking at all the budget. And so I'm just wondering if we need to do that in January before February. And then the other part of the question is, since we're on county oversight, are the county auditors, or whatever you want to call them, are they going to make recommendations on what or where we should cut?
That's really, they might have some suggestions when they review our budget, but that's our work. That's work that for us to do, is to make the recommendations and have the county review our plan.
I'd just like to make a comment that I haven't seen the budget like this since I've been on the board. And even, I think the highest reserve we've had is 6%, and that felt really good. And so looking at the other elementary school districts who are at 17 or 20%, it's just, incredible, that they could be there. I guess that's the only question I have for now. It's a lot to look at.
Thank you. It is very concerning to have such low reserves for our school district.
Are there other comments from my fellow trustees or questions? I'll take that as a no. I mean, I share the concern, and I think I've voiced this many times before. Oh, Trustee Villalobos, please.
I don't know how I could forget this, is the last slide, which has to do with the workforce housing and positive cash flow for the district. I'm just curious is this still realistic if we're looking at not having enough reserves for the next 2 years?
It's realistic based on financing options. By having a COP, you finance it in a structure so that you can receive the funds and then you start paying the loan back when the rents start coming in. The other thing that makes it more realistic for us is having the sale of site funds as a setting it aside as a reserve and borrowing the funds from HART. HART has graciously offered to loan us the funds and to renew the loan from fiscal year to fiscal year until we issue the COP. So we feel like saving some of the sale of site funds puts us in a better position in the event that if the rents don't come in as high in the first year or two, we would have that little cushion to help us get through to pay off that COP.
And then just my last question or comment is it seems like we've been working on the workforce housing project for a lot of years. And so I'm just curious if we have any idea of when we could be breaking ground on that.
You know, that's a very good question. And until we get a response back from the city planning department, which I actually spoke with Brookwood Advisors today, and they were putting another call in. We want to come back with a fresh timeline and fresh financing and construction estimates as soon as we get that information so that we can give you the most recent. But I don't have the schedule right now based on the delays from hearing back from the planning department.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to make a quick comment there and maybe a little bit of clarification. I mean, we want to avoid a negative certification at all costs because that is the next step. So what Trustee Villalobos was asking about was sort of in our qualified status. My understanding is, as Ms. Peterson said, is that the county can make some recommendations, but ultimately the decisions are kind of up to us as long as they approve and they think that what we have is a viable strategy to get back in kind of fiscal stability, for lack of a better term. What we don't want is to get into negative status because then we can start to lose our autonomy. And I guess I heard Ms. Peterson in her statement.
I'm sorry, I missed that last.
That we will start to lose our autonomy to make our own decisions once we go into negative, should we get into negative status or further, where all of a sudden the fiscal crisis management team comes down here and starts telling you what you have to do to clean up your act, right?
That's correct. Yes, that's absolutely correct. Right now we have a fiscal advisor, and moving to the next level we would lose control. We would lose some control.
Yeah, and then the next step after that, which is not going to happen because we're going to take care of things, would be some sort of takeover, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, and we really don't want to be there. We've seen our neighbors in Oakland go through that, and it really was not pretty. So anyway, a lot of work to do, but at least the choices are still in our hands as to what to do. So we've still got control. We still have power.
Yes, thank you. And we're hopeful that some of the funding will come through in January.
So I did have a quick question. Well, one other statement. I'm really glad that you brought up the our fiscal standing, right, in terms of affecting our credibility for a loan. And I suppose that a lot of the indicators are some of the indicators at least are kind of the same as we're being judged for certification, right, on that. So those are sort of intimately So that was just a statement. My only other question for you is, have you done a calculation on approximately how much the interest on the Tran is going to run us? Just ballpark?
Not yet, because I'm kind of going a different route right now. I'm working with the California School Finance Authority. They recently offered a Tran, and so I just submitted our cash flow to them, and then they're going to prepare a resolution and give us the cost of the borrowing, but it's going to be much less than the Piper Jaffray Tran that you've previously approved.
Okay.
And so they're projecting much lower borrowing costs. And so I should have that information ready for the next board meeting.
Great. And so this is some authority that pulls together a lot of different Tran for different districts, and then we get a lower interest rate. Excellent. Thank you so much.
We are up against the 10:30 hour. And so if we want to continue, and there's at least one item that I'd like us to at least consider, which is the wills item. So if we want to continue, then we need to extend our time, make a vote to extend our time.
Okay, well, we have a couple of items more to get through. So let's put this to the, do we have to state the?
I'd like, I mean, somebody would say, I'd like to make a motion to extend our time, and then you say a specific time, and it can't be more than a half an hour.
Okay, I think that we've only done this one time before, so I would like to make a motion to extend this particular meeting by 1/2 hour. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Alvis, will you please take the vote?
Sure. Trustee Bridal.
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini.
Yes.
Trustee Doggett.
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Trustee Villalobos.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to move on to item 10I, and that is the bond RFP and bid management for technology. Mr. Lucy. Oh, I'm sorry.
Did we vote on the interim report?
Oh, no, we haven't voted. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Good, you're keeping us honest, Ms. Peterson. So do I have a motion to approve the certification of the first interim report for 2020-2021?
All motion to approve.
Okay, who wants this? Okay, great. Did you get that, Ms. Alves?
No, I'm sorry. Who seconded it?
Trustee Bertal firsted it, and seconded it was Trustee Villalobos.
Firsted, I like that. Good English. Firsted.
Yeah, well, I didn't go to school just to eat my lunch. Okay, let's move on. Sorry for skipping that.
May I call the vote?
Oh,
Sorry,
of
may I call
course.
the vote? Okay. Trustee Bridal.
Yes.
Trustee Brocchini.
Yes.
Trustee Doggett.
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Trustee Villalobos.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
The
thank you so much.
5-0.
Thank you so much. We are now really going to move on to item 10I, bond RFP and bid management for technology. Mr. Lucy.
Okay, what I bring forth is a recommendation that the board approve the bid management statement of work proposal from Digital Advisors. I want to provide some background. Digital Advisors for over a year, a little bit over a year, has been working with Pacifica School District in assessing, planning, implementing, and optimizing our technology. It started with them facilitating 2 assessments, a cybersecurity assessment and an infrastructure and classroom technology assessment. Digital Advisors then created a high-level design which would be used for procurement of technology and services. Digital Advisors are now ready to support our implementation phase by overseeing the extremely technical RFP and bid management process for our upcoming bond infrastructure project. This includes an implementation inspection, which ensures the work that has been done is done correctly and within the high-level design guidelines. Digital Advisors will also ensure that we are optimizing this infrastructure upgrade and are able to measure its impact on our network. Involved with the scope of work is the support to develop technical and functional bid specifications, assistance with the competitive bidding process to select the product and services for cabling, cabled wired, and wireless networking, security tools, and compute and storage, and providing oversight on the implementation of these product and services. The total cost of $270,945.31 will be funded by bond funds. This is about $34,000 per site. Is there any questions? Do you have any questions?
My only question / comment, we're in a whole new world with distance learning, and cybersecurity is huge. And there was just a recent grand jury report that came out. I'm not sure if everybody's gone through it, but if digital advisors is kind of helping us procure these services, have they been supplied a copy of this grand jury report? And do we have kind of assurances that they will make sure that concerns in that report are going to be met with the services that they help us procure?
Well, I can't tell you if they've seen the grand jury report or anything. I could check with them on that, but I do know that part of this oversight of this RFP and infrastructure project, security is foremost in their mind. And the high-level design specifically has components of it that address the security purposes.
Sure. So I mean, I might just, you're going to be in touch with them, so I might just sort of share with them that we have this grand jury report that this is very important to us, and just to make sure that we're going through them to make sure that our cybersecurity is going to be taken into account for years to come.
So
right, we're sort of insulating ourselves.
Yeah, the work that we have already done with digital advisors is that they've done a very high level or deep dive into our cybersecurity. It's implementing all of the recommended practices where we have some challenges around that. But one of the reasons why this design is important is that it will provide support for the next 10 years, right? So if you think about that, including any kind of security things that may come up that are not yet invented.
Great. Okay. Thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thanks. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or make any comments? No. Okay. Well, so Mr. Lucy, is that it? Are we?
Yeah, that's it. It's I just wanted to in sharing the background, I just wanted you to know that this recommendation for approval of this statement of work was with a people that are digital advisors that we have been working with. We have a history with, been vetted.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. Well, I am going to motion to approve the bond RFP and bid management for technology. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. Ms. Alves, will you please take the vote?
Trustee Bradal.
Yes. You hear me?
Trustee Brocchini. Trustee Brocchini.
Yes.
Thank you. Trustee Doggett.
Yes.
Trustee Levin.
Yes.
Trustee Villalobos.
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we're rounding the bend here. Item 11A, March 2020 manual maintenance, series 0000, first reading. Superintendent Olson.
I will summarize very quickly is that the charter school laws have changed and these are updated policies. We recommend that you, in this one, this is just for information, but we'll bring it back to you. We don't currently have charter schools, but you have to have these policies in case someone pursues one. So are there any questions?
No questions.
bring this
No questions
back.
for me.
Okay, perfect. I don't mean to rush people off, but we will bring this back in consent unless we hear from you during that period of time.
Okay. Okay. Item 11B, March 2020 Manual Maintenance 3000 series. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, thank you. Again, it's information, and these are the new CSBA recommendations. The parcel tax policy BP 3471 is a new policy that addresses all of the requirements for school districts in levying and collecting parcel taxes with voter approval. And reading through the policy, it's all of the requirements that we have adhered to as we passed our parcel tax and as we account for our parcel tax. BPAR 3551 is the food services updated to reflect the new law SB 265, which provides that students with unpaid meals shall not be denied reimbursable or regular meals. They will not be given an alternate meal. So basically that's the SB 265 is really protecting the students with unpaid meals, which we have already been doing.
I just have a question about that because there's language in there that reads donation of leftover food and being on tables. And so I was just concerned, you know, being in COVID times, are we still going to do that practice of putting leftover food on tables for kids to eat?
No, absolutely not. It's in the policy, but we're currently not doing that. We're going to continue the Grab and Grow meal program.
All right.
I think we just lost Jesse. Oh, there we go.
Oh, you can hear me? Oh, I was just asking if there were any other questions or comments. It does say my internet connection is unstable. Let's go quickly. So item 12, future agenda items.
Very quickly, we talked about the approval of the school plan, that's not something we're going to do in December. So we'll take that off as a December 9th meeting. The trustees will gather to write my evaluation in a special closed session meeting on Wednesday, the 2nd of December. And did we say starting at 4 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And what we will do is we will set up that Zoom call and then leave you alone to do that work together. And you may want to do it in Google Docs, but if you're meeting, that's a legal group. So we'll talk about the specifics on that. And then Trustee Levin's last meeting is on December 16th. That's where we do our reorganization, and we're trying to keep that as light as possible, that meeting, but we did get a request for a presentation from the Pacifica Resource Center. So we'd like to present that on the 16th. And I know that CBO Peterson will also have some business items that need to come forward. Good. And then as we move into January 20th is when we look at bringing a plan forward. We have been in touch with the trustees regarding board governance session as we welcome our new trustee, our 5th trustee. Every time you have a new member, you have a new team. And so we had agreed earlier when we worked with Luann Rivera around committing to having a governance session when we brought on the new board member. So the current dates that we have heard from trustees back that are, if you would hold on to March 2nd and March 3rd. And then I just need to talk with a potential new candidate around availability for that. Okay.
I just have some concerns with the amount of meetings that we're having in March.
Okay.
We're having 2 board meetings and then 2 governance meetings that'll be 3 to 4 hours long. And so I think I emailed you that I'm not in support of that because number one, we are in the pandemic, and I foresee that we may be having a special meeting or emergency meetings when we're going back to school. And so I just wanted to put that out there. I'm just being honest. That's a lot to put on the plate, 2 4-hour sessions back to back, and then a board meeting the next week, and then another board meeting at the end of the month.
Okay. Any other trustees?
I'm not going to speak to this.
Yes, good
point. It would not be fair.
I don't show another board meeting at the end of the month, but maybe I missed that in my calendar. I only see one in March. But I mean, we're good. That would happen. I mean, because we need to have the governance meetings, that's going to double up somewhere all the time. So I'm fine with it.
I think I saw it on the website under board meetings, future board meetings. There's a document there.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now as we speak.
Well, maybe we could just double check with the new board trustee and just see, because maybe he's not even available for those dates.
Correct, right? Correct, I will check. I have the only board meeting we have is March 11th. In 2021. You're correct. No, it's March 10th and March 31st. So I will continue to check. It really comes down to also the facilitator's availability, and to do it so that it wasn't in the same week as a board meeting got us all the way to March. She didn't have anything available in January and nothing available in February. So, okay. Kai, what are your thoughts?
I mean, we've had to double up on meetings before, so it's, I'm okay with it.
Okay, very good. I do think it's an important part of welcoming the team, and I think what happened when we, in the last one, is that our newest trustees didn't have that, and we committed to that in terms of developing our team on that end. So I will check with a potential new candidate, and we'll move forward from there. So I have nothing else.
All right. Well, if nobody else has anything else, then I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 10:39 p.m.
Okay.
Thanks for sticking it out, everybody.
Thank you for hanging in there.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Suzanne was on the walk. She made sure everything was running well. Good job, Kelly.
Have a good night, everybody.
See ya.
Bye-bye.